Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, an unofficial look at the world's coolest social network for folks watching on YouTube Live and on Google Plus. We'll be watching for your comments and questions, and we'll get to all of them unless they're naughty or even worse, boring. Just kidding. But we hope you'll be commenting with us as we go. My guests, I have two guests tonight. I have Hermine Gnomire, who had a Hangout surgery, the first ever Hangout surgery. Hermine is doing quite well and looking lovely as ever, radiant. How are you, Hermine?
I am doing exceptionally well. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. Also in the panel from Guam, we have Jason Salas joining us from KUAM TV. I finally got the call letters right when Oleg screamed at me. It's Guam with a K, and then I could remember. Jeff Zayas is joining us. I don't know, California. San Francisco, California, Bay Area. We also have from Locker Gnome, Creighton Miller. And what's your site, Creighton?
LogicLounge.com.
LogicLounge.com. We have Bruce Turner joining us from Lynchburg, Virginia. You just had Mitt Romney over there speaking. I think he was staying at your house, right? And you had a little reception for him after the gig.
Oh yeah, we had Chick-fil-A for supper.
Absolutely, as only he would have. Anthony Klauser is joining us from Rochester, New York. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you.
He's the spokesman for the group. I like picking on Anthony. And Alan Furstenberg is joining us from somewhere else in New York. We're not sure where, but at least he's not on a ferry this time. Sometimes he's on some ship or something. But he's on the mainland. So welcome, Alan. And from Google in California, or in Kirkland, Washington, we have Mr. Chee Chew. Welcome, Chee. Good to have you back.
Hi, how's it going?
Great. Okay, so you've had a busy week. Like Dolly Parton in the movie, I've been busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. I remember you. We were trying to get you on last week, and you were flying, or I guess you were in California. Mountain View for the launch.
Right. I was in the rollout, launch.
Right?
Yeah, for the initial one, yeah.
The initial one. So I guess tell us how it's going and how many folks have Hangouts on air now out of the 700 billion that all the 3-minuters. Just kidding. So tell me, how's it going so far?
It's going really well. The uptake is really really very strong, and like I guess earlier today, like you guys were asking really what was the most common question I'm fielding about Hangouts, and the most common question right now is when do I get turned on for Hangouts on air? But we haven't announced exactly how many people are turned on for the accounts, but it's several tens of millions of people have the account turned on at this point.
Now I guess what you did initially, you were rolling out the new interface, but now I guess everyone has the interface, and because like my sister, she has the interface, but then it says, "Oops, servers are busy." Are they really busy, or does that mean? This is one of those questions you may not be able to answer. Does everyone have the interface that looks like they have it, but then you're rolling out to make that work, or how does that work?
Oh, you mean the new invite, like when you come in?
Yeah, so they have the option to enable Hangouts on air. Does everyone have that, but it may or may not work yet?
So not everyone has the checkbox to enable Hangouts on air. We actually rolled out to a large number of people, and then when we saw the uptake on it and we were looking at how much load we were taking, we suspended new signups for it, essentially. So there are a number of people who have that checkbox but don't yet have the ability to turn on, and we just got kind of caught in the middle there. We'll turn those on really pretty soon.
So you've been racing to Best Buy, buying servers and rushing them to your air-conditioned offices.
Servers, bandwidth. It takes a lot of traffic to do all.
Poor
this.
Comcast guy, geez. He's been racing in there. So let me start with Alan. Do you have any questions for Mr. Chee Chew?
First of all, as always, every time I speak to you, I want to thank you for the excellent service. I know I probably can speak for all of us in saying we very much appreciate all the work that your team has been doing for this. I know that in one of the big features last Friday was that your team announced that some changes to the Hangout API were available, and some of those new apps that make use of that API started rolling out on Monday or so. And we see about 4 people here who are using lower thirds, for example.
I love that.
How is and I understand there have been a couple of problems with the API. In particular, some Linux users were haven't gotten the new driver yet? Or what is the status of Linux support and the full support for the new API?
Yeah, so the plugin for Linux came out, just come out a little bit later, and we had to decide whether we wanted to hold everything, the Mac and PC plugins, or go out without them first. And we decided just let them roll forward, just looking at the usage numbers and also allowing developers to get their apps out there. We generally have a philosophy of whenever we can just to push aggressively and let users get a hold of the new functionality and use it whenever possible. But we're trying to get the Linux one out as soon as we can. I know the engineer, you've spoken with him, he's definitely focused on getting that out right now.
Let me ask one quick question on behalf of Oleg, who is ill. He has wonderful children, and we all love his children, but as we all know, all children are incubators for disease, and so he's caught a cold or flu or something. But he wants to know, Chee, when he might be able to watch YouTube Live on his tablet or phone. And in the meantime, he was saying he didn't see us yet, because this was about 10 minutes ago. What's the status on that, Chee?
I'll double check on that, but I believe that was actually in the pipeline. The fixes to turn on for mobile, so that's already in the pipeline and just waiting for the servers get pushed out.
You're talking about watching. You're not talking about joining, correct?
Right. I'm talking about watching. Right.
Okay. Have you all said, or can you say why you can't join mobile? Is it a rights or liability issue? My thinking was this. My theory is you're in a mall and you could aim your phone at somebody who hasn't agreed to the terms of service, and you could have a liability issue. That's my guess.
No. It's not a liability issue. It's a technical issue, and it's a little bit of a product plan issue. There are a bunch of things we have planned coming up for On Air that we need to get the mobile client all up to sync with. Otherwise, as we roll out these new features, the mobile experience will really be pretty choppy, and I don't want to do that. So we're gonna wait till we get a bunch of this functionality built into the mobile platform uniformly, and then turn it all on. I can't say a whole lot more about it because we sort of disclose what our future plans and features are, but it's just a technical issue. It's not a liability or legal or anything like that.
Okay, and then let's just go left to right here. I think everyone. Anthony, did you want to sing praises or ask a question of our guest?
With giving out the Hangouts on Air to, I believe it's a random, random people get, right?
That's right. Since we're turning on batches of millions at a time, we're not sort of handpicking people.
So if you're not handpicking people, is there any increased concern that now that they can broadcast live on YouTube, that they might be broadcasting things that YouTube doesn't want them to be broadcasting, like porn or what have you?
So that's a concern about going full public in any case, regardless of how we roll it out. And that certainly is a concern, and is probably the biggest reason why it's taken us a while to do that. But we have a bunch of infrastructure and processes and all that to keep watch on things, and hopefully keep sort of content that we don't think should be up there from staying up there or getting out there in the first place. I can't say too much more about that, but some folks have already seen it. If you are broadcasting some content that we recognize as not being allowed to be on air and being broadcasted, you'll see warnings inside your Hangout and potentially have it be taken down and your account suspended for some period of time, if not permanently, depending on how egregious the offense is.
Bruce, did you want to go next?
Yeah, I sure did. We were all excited, looking forward to getting Hangouts on air. I'm glad that I've got Hangouts on air. I can remember logging in and logging out 2 or 3 times a day. Have I got it now? Once you get it, then there's a lot of people, people like Dan who've already thought about, okay, how am I going to deploy Hangouts on air? How am I going to leverage this great power for what I do? and then there are other people say, oh, I got Hangouts on air, and so they're just out there broadcasting anything and everything.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what your expectation was, and maybe what's been your most pleasant surprise as you see people getting Hangouts on air and leveraging this great power.
Yeah, so I like this question a lot, and I laugh because this is something that we debate about, and we've been observing how people are taking to it, and like I had sort of visions of how eventually things will work. But I don't know how many of you guys were with us from the very beginning, like on day one. There are a few of you, but do you remember like way back in the first 1 or 2 weeks, we had lots of requests and feedback around like, well, the Hangout can only have 10 people in there at a time, and like we want to be able to listen in, and we just want to be able to hear like all these other Hangouts. Like, why can't you just let us hear it? And on air just lets people listen in. But I guess the way that people sort of think about it when they realize this broadcasting and we're going to look in, then they think, okay, it's a broadcast and I have to have a plan around it, and it's a big thing. Some people have just said, oh yeah, no, I'm just broadcasting, or I'm just like letting people listen in. Like for us, eventually, I think it would be a great thing if we both happened, where more and more people, they have a topic they want to discuss, think nothing about it, and they just use Hangout on air and they have this conversation, and then people can essentially kind of wander by and listen in and see if they're interested, and they're interested, then they can jump in. It's sort of like a taste before you try it sort of thing. And then other people who want to actually create a program like Dan's doing, like they're able to use it to actually create a program around it. So I like to see it can go in both paths, right?
It's going to be, we've said before, I've talked to Sarah Hill from KOMU TV in Missouri, and she does, she's one of several stations that use Hangouts in their newscast, and it's going to be so neat when you can join mobile. I'm just imagining like someone in Syria doing a Hangout on air from the middle of a demonstration, or so, just the possibilities. I'm guessing, Chee, you never imagined all these crazy things that we do when you first started this, right?
Well, I imagine that you guys would do crazy things. I wasn't particular on what crazy things you guys do, because I think you guys are just way too more creative than I am about that. But I do think that like that use case is another one that I'm really excited to see. Like we talk about on air being these long form broadcasts, hour long or topic based one where you're having a conversation with a bunch of people for some period of time. I can also imagine, I hope that folks will end up doing this where if there's an event that happens, you get lots and lots of people going on air, and then you can have newscasters and like Sarah Hill or whatever cull across lots of broadcasts and figure out like which ones are the most interesting ones and sort of pull those forward. And the ones who are like in the thick of it, like really seeing something amazing, those can get plussed and reshared and hits what's hot, and you can sort of find the best of the field, right? So I think that happening with video and like short form video will also be really interesting for us.
For folks watching on YouTube Live, we're looking at those comments. Also on Justin TV, we're watching those, and on Google Plus. So you can chime in if you have a question for Chee. He'll probably answer it. Bruce, did you have another one before we go to Creighton?
No, that's fine. I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Okay, Creighton, what's on your mind for Chee Chew, the creator of Google Hangouts, the head of the team?
I do have one question. Now that it's opening up to more and more people, have you seen more and more people using live Hangouts regularly? Because I know you might see a spike just because, oh, look, I have live Hangouts, let me go check it out. But has that really increased the number of people doing those live Hangouts?
Oh, you can tell by just watching the Hangouts landing page and the number of Hangouts to watch. I think that if you go there, you'll see a lot more on-air broadcasts that are just the conversation, or even some that are crazy. Like we saw one on day one, which was a couple of birds like they're pet birds, and they were doing all sorts of interesting, playful things. And I know one of the Googlers on our team really kind of like she loved that. I guess she loved the birds. So we're definitely seeing a much wider range of broadcasts, and I'm definitely seeing also just normal conversations getting broadcasted, and I think that's great. Everyone can see the uptake of that in the main landing page.
That was the only question I had.
Okay, Hermine, you have a question for
Yeah,
our buddy
we said
Chee?
we can ask a question, or that we could just dote and tell him how much we greatly appreciate all the things that his team has put together, so that I don't have much of a question. Just to say thank you for you and your team to helping to put, just launch this and being committed to seeing it grow and develop day in and day out, ups, downs, and everything in between. Thank you.
It's a huge amount of fun. Like the team here, I like really enjoy, especially like engaging with everyone. Like when you guys are passionate about it, and using it in all sorts of crazy ways. Like I think that really just feeds to our enthusiasm and the fun of doing the work. So thanks to you guys.
Okay, Jason, you want to? Now you're getting the grilling. See, we've been buttering you up so far.
Okay, well, actually, before I do have a specific question for Chee, but I guess maybe to the panel and anybody out there watching right now, you can jump in our chat, in our comment stream, I should say. Has anybody ever seen if a live Hangout, while it's truly live and while it's being broadcast, has that ever made What's Hot? I thought about that when she was just talking about it. Has anything ever made the What's Hot list while it's actually broadcasting, as opposed to being an archive?
I don't know. I haven't tracked that.
I would assume that Hermine's surgery, which we'll talk about shortly, that probably, if there was anything that it probably would have gotten that because everybody was talking about it.
I would guess that the President Obama Hangout probably did, right? But that's a special.
Did we have the What's Hot list back then? Was it out at that time? It might have been.
I'm not sure. The Conan one might have, but I didn't check. Conan one got a lot of pluses. I don't remember how many. You can go back and look at it, but it had a lot of pluses and reshares and all that.
What about the soccer god? Beckham? No? Okay, maybe.
I would assume that it probably would have been the President's one or Conan or the Muppets.
I don't remember. I don't remember the timing of that versus like the What's Hot. It's been kind of a blur.
Okay, well here's now if I do have a technical question for you. This is maybe more on a vision thing, given your role as the man who controls the teams for both Hangouts and also for G-Talk.
Control would have a too strong of a word. I think I tried herd cats.
Okay, well, as the man who oversees, I guess, a lot of the work that has to do with Hangouts and then with G-Talk and also the work you're doing with Chrome remoting, there's been, of course, like a lot of talk that, the plugin that is required for G-Talk and for Hangouts, that one day will be replaced by, assumedly, an open standard like with WebRTC. From your vantage point, how excited are you about actually moving towards something that's going to be baked directly into the browser as part of the browser application experience? And, can you speculate on what that will mean for any performance improvements and maybe infrastructurally how it's going to improve actually managing Hangouts?
Yeah, that's something that we're constantly analyzing because as you guys know, with the world of browsers and plugins and all that sort of stuff, it's a hard world to get the balance right with the plugins across multiple different platforms, across multiple different browsers and all that sort of stuff. The question about when, whether, and how to move on to something built into the browser will also depend on when do all the browsers get that capability, right? And will they have a common codec? Which right now, the video tag, there's not one codec that spans across all video tags, right? So there's a lot of unknown there, and we're definitely looking at it, but we don't really have a concrete plan at this point on where to go. In large part because the industry hasn't figured it out. We're so early. No one's really released WebRTC. We've got to eventually, like if you look multiple years down the road, I hope all of this just gets worked out, and so we can like I love my team to be able to focus on the functionality, the feature set, and less on the media stack.
Let me do a quick YouTube question, and then we'll go see if Jason has anything else, and then we'll go to Jeff. From Wallace, watching on YouTube Live. And again, if you have a question, please, I'm getting Hermine.
And let me...
Oh, okay, go ahead.
We got a question on YouTube from E.S. Wallace. He asks, will there be a better filter for searching live Hangouts? And they continue that they notice a lot that those that come up are no longer active Hangouts in the search. I assume that's when they click on the show more link. And I guess in general, is there going to be better searching? Is there going to be a better way to discover Hangouts, Hangouts on air, Hangouts you might want to join? What's the future in terms of finding Hangouts to join?
Yeah, so I think this is referring to something that kind of has gone up now, but we had a bit of an issue past couple days around how fresh the search results are for live Hangouts, and unfortunately, there was a period of time where the search results were actually stale by like over an hour, and that's as a result. Then the results you get are often like the Hangouts no longer there. The search team is definitely working on that as aggressively as they can, and we definitely want to get that turnaround to be one that is like comes fast enough that all your results are live. I don't have a timeline to sort of give around what that will be stable. Most Hangouts searches are actually live at this point, and they aren't that stale. So very few of them anymore are stale Hangouts. But that'll go up and down depending on the load, and we're going to get that fixed. As far as other flexibility for doing search, that's definitely a space that we're hard at work on. You can imagine that we are, since we're a search company. So stay tuned. I think we have some great things planned there.
Okay, let's. Jason, did you have a follow-up, or should we go to Jeff next?
Well, really quick. I just wanted to say, Chee, would you be able to say maybe in 5 words or less, what has been the specific use case as far as all the Hangouts you've seen, either live or just public or just private, or that you've heard of? What has blown your mind as far as what people are doing with use cases? What is the most impressive Hangout you've seen?
So I'm not that type of person that really one thing impressive. Like the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu definitely moved me. Maybe it's because I was sleep deprived, being 4 o'clock in the morning. But the thing that I get the most fulfillment around that I really value from the whole thing is, I believe that we help the world if we bring the world sort of closer together, and more people sort of see other people around the world as real people, as opposed to stereotypes. I grew up in a world of, when I was a kid, lots of stereotypes. And the fact that you're in Guam and we have people from Europe and Asia and all that thing is, to me, the most heartening. That's the thing that I'm most excited about. There's no question about that.
All right, well, thanks, Gene. Please keep up the good work. We do sincerely appreciate it. You guys are doing amazing work.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, Jeff Zayas in San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, Chee, again, great. I mean, everyone loves the Hangouts. It is the killer feature of Google Plus, and it's the premier product for that. So I really thank you for that. I have a couple questions, really quick. Is there any things moving towards Hangouts on air to a limited circle instead of to general public, so you can size it down a little bit, where you can have more than 10 participate, sort of, but
right.
Do it that way.
So let's see if I get it right. This is a very common request is when people hit the broadcast button, they want to broadcast it not to the public, but they want to broadcast it just to their circle. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a very common request. I want that too. I think there are lots of really good use cases for that. Yeah. And in fact, during the whitelist period, as we were experimenting and trying to get the whole thing through, with the whitelist, you could actually do that. When you did the invite, it would play to just those people. As one of the legal requirements to go full public, we had to make the broadcast go all public. There are a bunch of reasons behind that I can't quite go into. A bunch of those limitations I think are solvable, but it's going to take us a little while to go and do the work items and all and create the features that will allow us to do that again. But for right now, our short-term focus is really getting to full rollout. So we're not yet working on those features.
Okay, and a follow-up question: is there a way to get a persistent link to a Hangout so you don't create a new link a new stream link each time that it's a persistent link? For example, we participate in a Hangout called Tech and Coffee, and it's basically on for 18 hours a day, and it just would be a persistent link makes it a little bit easier to kind of find it and post it and get in there. So I didn't know if that was in the works as well.
That's a request that we have from a few folks. It's not a massive request. And at the same time, I think we also have experienced like name collisions on that. So we have a persistent link. Everyone wants like sort of vanity names, and there's a little bit of conflict over that. So we have some ideas on how to solve that.
Okay.
The use case of you want a findable location where you and others can get back to easily.
Correct.
That's definitely something that we're interested in solving. It won't necessarily be in sort of a named URL in the way that people are envisioning it. I don't think. We're still batting that around. But that use case that you want, yeah, we're interested in solving it, definitely.
Oh, perfect. And one last thing, I'm looking forward to the final elegant solution for the mobile app. So make it a little bit easier to join Hangouts and find them, because that will just pull it all together. So that's going to be just amazing. So I'm really looking forward to it. And again, kudos to your team. They're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, let's go to Alan, who's got a question or two from the folks watching on YouTube and Google+. Alan?
Yes, from YouTube again, from Pappy G. They ask, are there tutorials out there on the best use or proper use of Hangouts on the air?
There are a couple of things that are getting put together by the community. I think I want to say like Melissa Carlson or Sarah Hill have done a bunch of things around best practices for Hangouts on Air. I'll dig those up and I can post them on my stream or something like that. But like it's evolving so quickly that I think sometimes a lot of the best practices that people had, or sometimes ways of curating the room or things like that, and we've been evolving the product as aggressively as we can to sort of make that easier and easier. So the feedback we've gotten from a lot of people who are writing this document is like it's a lot of work to keep that up to date. So I'll send out a link for what we have. I'll send out a link, or actually what the community has.
There's also a really good, Jason pointed out, if you go to Google or do a search in Google Plus and type Google Hangout Technical Guide, there's some really good stuff, not as far as the content necessarily, but like recommendations of cameras and just different things about how to do a Hangout. That's a really good thing. That's by the actual Google team, but as Chee said, the community's coming up with some amazing guides as well.
They're doing a great job.
Yeah, I'm holding it up right now. It's an excellent piece. I believe 13 pages or so. I've highly recommended it to people who are getting Hangouts on there.
Okay, so I guess we'll go to Sreek in sadly in New Jersey. No, I'm just kidding.
Hi, Shiv.
Hi, Sreek.
Good to see you again.
Wait, you're saying New York here, not New Jersey.
Well, I'm very close to New York. I prefer to be said that I'm New York. Well,
you're not admitting to New Jersey.
No.
Streak is following the Nets. Streak is following the Nets, and he's moving to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Well, I'm across the bridge, across the river, so,
How many people on the other side of the bridge say, "Hey, I'm from New Jersey"?
Not many. I agree. But I spend half of my day in New York anyway. I have two questions. One, I'm going to go back to what Creighton said. It's a follow-up question on what Creighton asked. We always debate, well, not always, sometimes we debate here, that the Hangouts we see on the Hangouts link, or live watching, or, to participate in, the way they are displayed, do you actually show every single Hangout happening at that time on Google Plus, or is it anyway related to who I'm following? Is it regional? You get my drift, right? So because if you say you're rolling out in millions, I would expect to see like 1% of that is how much?
So I can't say all too much about how what's behind all of that. But certainly we are not showing all the Hangouts that are happening. Like there are a lot more that are happening at one time. But yeah, I can't comment too much on how.
No, I get it, but I just wanted to make sure that, or not make sure, at least understand whether is that the way it works. Anyway, we thought that it's curated a little bit. The other question is browser-based, video conferencing.
Yeah.
The way it is done right now in Hangouts is so simple. You just get a link and you get into it with an ID login. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Hangouts getting into the corporate sector together with your Google Apps framework? Most probably, maybe. Depending on whether the companies are using your infrastructure or they're going to use their infrastructure to. Do you think it's a viable, way companies will do that as part of Google Apps?
Well, lots of companies already are doing that.
They are?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Google runs on Hangouts. So our video conferencing system for our company is Hangouts.
But are you packaging it already together with Google Apps?
So from an infrastructure point of view, it's there, and if you're a domain customer, you can turn on Google Plus. So you can choose to turn on or off Google Plus. If you turn on Google Plus, then you get Hangouts, and so you can use it in your domain, very much like Google does. And we run thousands and thousands of Hangouts every day to run our daily business. I know that Larry Page's conference room, he has a large screen that's hooked up for Hangouts, and it's dedicated for doing Hangouts, and that's how we meet them.
Okay, so even if they are using their own infrastructure, how do they use Google Plus, or is that a Google Plus just for their company?
No, they would. You turn on Google Plus, and that's in what we call the C panel, the control panel for the domain. And then once you turn that on, then Hangouts are available to you, and then you can use those to call people directly, or have your team meeting or whatever.
Okay, I saw your post today about somebody creating an app for putting the hand up in a Hangout, so that I don't know what's the response you got, but I'm hoping that somebody's gonna write that app pretty soon.
I got news for you, Sri.
Oh, does somebody already did it?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Well, see, 2 calls for it, somebody does it. Thank you.
That's pretty cool.
Guess who, Sri?
Yeah, he's laughing because he's doing it.
Guess who?
Yeah.
Gerwin, did you do it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, now there's one thing I wanted to bring up, because Hangout apps have really taken off and everything like that. But of course, Gerwin has done so much amazing work, and so has Moritz Toldoff and everything like that. I was going to say, Alan is actually representing the United States of America as far as the achievements of Hangout apps. So, USA.
That's another case.
There's so many wonderful Hangout apps coming out. From our
also
European
don't forget Robert Pitt, who's not in America.
Oh, that's true. And then of course Mohammed was doing some really cool stuff, and he's from Canada.
Yeah, he's from Canada, but he's now in the U.S.
Yeah, he worked at Microsoft. That's true. He's down in the Bay Area.
Is there a restriction in terms of? I'm using the lower thirds now. Am I allowed to use comment tracker or anyone? There's only one extension I can use at a time. Application I can use it.
No, you can use them all.
You can't use comment tracker and using the lower third app at the same time.
Right, that's what I thought. I'm just wondering from Chee Chew.
And Alan just missed the glowing reviews we gave him because he dropped out suddenly. But Alan, we had your back, man. We said you're representing American Hangout developers. You were the first great American Hangout developer.
Thank you.
We've got a number of questions from. How many can you handle, Alan, at once? Do you have to do them one at a time? Because we've got a bunch.
Yes, I have to do them one at a time. I'm working on it, and.
Well, let me do one funny comment.
Let me answer one question there. We had a big debate in the team around whether we allow multiple apps to run at a time or one app to run at a time, because we were afraid about the complexity and all that, and questioning whether the demand would be there to run 2 or 3 apps at a time. But clearly, the feedback and the demand is like you want to run multiple apps at a time. It doesn't seem too confusing. So we're already moving. You can see a bunch of stuff where we're moving that direction. But that was something where we had early debates on. It was really seeing how you guys are using it really helped answer that question.
And to answer it, I guess from my point of view as well, and this is a conversation that Gerwin and I have been talking about a lot, is there are some cases where we could see that we'd want to be developing and releasing these small, very specific application apps, and then tying a bunch of them together in a unified app so that each of the components themselves can talk to each other and work in a very unified way.
Right.
So, for example, the comments that I've been putting up this evening, it's a different app that I wrote. It doesn't have any connection right now with Comment Tracker, but you could easily see how it would work well with Comment Tracker. You could easily see how it would work well with the hand raising app. There are combinations of lower thirds and other things. You could see how they'd all tie in well together. So having some communication between them
that's a good
might
point.
be good. And I understand that's difficult for you guys to manage as well. So
that's a good point, and that's not something that we've really dug really deep on. Like there's just so much to do, but you should definitely bring that with Richard and Amit, who they lead the platform side, and having a way for like your app to essentially grant permission to a specific other app that you know about, so that they can that you can give permissions to communicate. I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. I definitely see more like suites of apps, like suites of lightweight apps getting built, and I like the notion of lots of lightweight apps instead of big monolithic ones.
Yes.
Alan, we've got a number of comments. I'm gonna try to bust through some of these real quick. Our questions for Chee. I'm not sure, Chee, how much time we have with you, but Alan, which one do you have, and then I'll go to some others.
I have none of them at the moment. I'm loading them up. I've got Carlos's message. I'll get that in a second.
Okay, AC Cruz is watching on Google Plus, and he wants. This really isn't specific to Hangouts. I was wondering if a fix is in the near future to keep the stream still when entering a comment on a post. I think there's a thing for that, right? There's a Chrome extension that does that.
There's a Chrome extension for almost everything. I don't know the answer to that. Like I focus on the Hangout stuff, and the stream guys are actually down in Mountain View, so I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah, I think there's an extension if someone else is watching. This is from the Google Plus YouTube live player. So if you could, someone could weigh in with the link to that. And then that comment's gone.
Then we have this one from Carlos. They wanted to know if there are any plans to basically improve the chat communications between inside a Hangout and outside a Hangout.
Well, that's something that we've been debating, because like a lot of times inside the Hangouts for an on-air, people use the chat to actually like coordinate essentially a producer role for the Hangouts, letting people know what's coming up, or like telling people back channel information to help manage the Hangout. So I think that's an important part of having a good on-air, so I don't want to take that away. Having some way of having communication inside and outside, that's pretty interesting, and I would say that you could do that as an app. Like you can certainly build an app that lives inside and has some communication outside, and essentially like Gerwin's app is just one example, and it could be two-way as well.
And again, I think that's the sort of thing that goes well with coming up with lightweight suites that know how to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Hey, Chew, may I ask one more question?
Sure.
Is there a codec or some kind of white paper on how the Hangouts actually handle the video drivers? So, like some virtual cameras work with the Hangouts and others don't, and some software kind of interfaces to it and others don't. So, is there for example, there's many software that have virtual cameras, right? Like XSplit and VidBlaster and Wirecast is going to be doing that. And then there's like Manicam and
Right.
Webcam Max. Some of them actually, they interface directly into it and some don't. And I don't know the reason why some do and some don't, even though they all seem to have virtual cameras in their, software, but there's not all of them work. And I don't know, I get a gray screen.
Yeah. So we don't do any work specific to any of those cameras or virtual cameras. So we go through their operating system's unified interface for them. Like there are some periodically a bug that's introduced that causes one or other camera to not work. Like I think the latest Minicams release, they have a unescaped apostrophe, which then screws up a lot of enumeration. So a lot of Minicams all of a sudden stopped listing. But that sort of stuff aside, the actual interface of the camera is standard to the operating system, and we don't go directly.
You don't do anything with that. Okay.
No, we don't. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we had another question from Clayton Condon. He says,
Clayton Condon, I've got it.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Maybe, assuming it shows up. Hello. Anyway, we've got a question from Clayton Condon who wanted to know, how do you remove a Hangout app once they're installed?
Right now, there's not a way, and that's the common request. We've heard that request. That's something that we'll work in, but yeah, right now there's not a way of doing that.
So I have a question if I can ask one. There's a lot of there's a lot of live hangouts that are basically produced shows like this show, Google Plus Week. It needs some sort of production role. A show that I do needs some sort of production role as well. Has there been any talk of maybe implementing or making a different version like Google Plus Hangouts extras for maybe people who want to broadcast with like a production role where people where could be someone like behind the Hangout working stuff out?
That's certainly something that we've talked about, and like if we look at the Obama Hangout or something like that, the really big production ones, there are a lot of people behind the scenes. We made a decision about like we could focus on making that experience really great and having all that producer role, or we could focus on essentially opening up Hangouts to like millions and millions of people. And I think that the needs have some overlap, but they're not the same. And we chose to go after opening up to like essentially everyone as far as we can go, as far as legal will let us. So I think eventually we'll go back to the big production, what we call the tentpole Hangouts. That's how we turn them. But right now we're going after the teacher Hangouts. It's just internally that we've been calling the teacher Hangout and the tentpole Hangouts.
Okay.
Okay, Alan, did you have another question? The funniest comment I've gotten so far is Wallace noted that Chee is sponsored by Coca-Cola tonight. He's
people have commented on a bit. You know, it's actually been here for a long time, so you can tell that because the back side of it is
faded.
Yeah, it's orange, not red.
It's sun. It's like
Very
sun
nicely.
tea, but sun Coke.
And
So,
I
yeah.
would point out that we have a Coca-Cola theme going on here, so I very much love your Coke background there, Chee.
Yeah, there's a story behind that. Like, Google's a very flat organization, and it actually used to be much flatter than it is in terms of the reporting structure. So, a couple of years ago, I had 70-something direct reports, and so that means I had to write like around 80 reviews at like in the fall. And so like one of the guys in my team left me that big ball of Coke and said like 80 reviews, you deserve a Coke.
Chee, one thing that might help you is there is actually a manual for military and government. It's called Words and Phrases for Performance Appraisals. And it gives you, if you're trying to say like someone's talented, it'll give you like specific phrase. Like if it was negative, like you could say about Alan, unable to perform minimum tasks with maximum supervision. Just kidding. But you should look that up and get that book. Words and Phrases for Performance Appraisals. It's awesome. It would make your life a lot easier.
Oh yeah.
And then Alan has another question for Chee.
Yeah, we have a question from Rufus. Make it so that when you join a Hangout, you gain access to the video stream and that chat room, and then from within that interface, allow people to request it to be on air. So it sounds like they're kind of asking to change how on air is launched. Any chance that it'll be able to be launched from a regular
Hangout? When you join a Hangout, you gain access to the video stream and that chat room. So I'm going to guess at what he's going at, and maybe you guys should correct me if you think I'm interpreting it wrong, where essentially people want to take any Hangout and sort of take it on air at any point. That's my guess. If that's what he's saying, the concern we have around there at this point is that we need to get clear consent and awareness that it is on air before all that happens, which is why in what we call the red room, when you join it on air, you go through this thing that really clearly tells you that it's on air. We have the legal stuff that tells you what it's about, but also it looks different, so there's no question in your mind that you're joining a different Hangout. So that would be a requirement. There have been talk about well, you could, when someone tries to take it on air, you could pause the whole thing and make everyone agree to it and all that sort of stuff. But I think that's kind of awkward, and when we look at the use case, by and large, people know ahead of time that they want to go on air.
Alan, do you have another one? Maybe we're going to lose Alan. Eric Rice had a question. He said, joking about Coca-Cola aside, for Chee, is what about a trademark issue? Is that a risk if we have something behind us I guess you have bigger fish to fry. I don't know.
So I don't believe there's a trademark issue about having an object right behind you. I don't think Coca-Cola would be at all sad to see every Hangout have a Coke behind them.
I think some of this comes in from the fact that the Time magazine cover that was shown last week was apparently flagged for being a trademark infringement for a number of people, and that was some of the concern that I think is behind this particular question.
Yeah, I don't think that that's all that much of an issue for this. I won't go into legal issues about why or anything, but that's not been an issue. I definitely, as far as the question about performance goes, I definitely would advise people to make sure that they have the rights to perform wherever they're performing on air. Well,
if I can just jump in for a sec, consider what Food Network does with all of its shows, because when they build their sets and they have these fake kitchens that they shoot their shows in and everything, they actually take all of their ingredients and all of their food materials and they actually create generic wrappers and non-existent companies and everything to say here's Dan's ketchup and here's McDermott's salt and everything like that, just so that they won't offend anyone who might be a potential conflict with one of their sponsors. Obviously, if Dan's show was right now sponsored by Pepsi and then Chee's got a big Coke bottle behind him, they'd have some
cut. You're funny.
Yeah.
But that's more of a sponsorship partnership issue, not much of a legal issue. And a couple of years or on the news, when you see people broadcasting on the street, they don't pick a place where they have no stores or anything behind them, right?
Yeah, there's no sense of privacy in a public place. Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to get to as many of these. Do you have another one there, Alan?
Yep, we've got another one. How closely does the YouTube team and the Hangout team work together?
We work pretty closely together, and more closely every day. Before we did Hangouts on Air, we didn't work very closely at all. But because of on air and how the infrastructure has come together, we're pretty close partners at this time. There's no way that we could do Hangouts on air without the partnership.
So is YouTube sizing the systems, or is the G Plus sizing the systems in terms of the bandwidth?
Google is paying for the bandwidth. We don't split it up in that sort of way. But as far as who runs the infrastructure for the actual Hangout Air, it's actually a partnership. So we take the Hangouts on Air video, which comes in and so using our real-time codecs. So YouTube does not have real-time codecs. So we use it and we transcode it and we put in the format that YouTube understands, and then we pipe that to YouTube, and then YouTube does the actual broadcast and the recording.
And before we go to the next question, Chee, one comment. For the love of God, Chee, don't drink that Coke. All right, Alan, you got another one?
Yeah. Our next question from Tim Bryce. Is there a way to know the YouTube address before the Hangout begins? Or are they assigned when the Hangout is started? I mean, I know that we can get it once we've started the Hangout itself. We can get the embed code and the future URL code.
Right.
Is there a way to get all of that before we even begin?
No, the address is created when the Hangouts started, so you can't do that ahead of time. It's definitely something that we've heard requests for. We'll look into it. It probably won't be the YouTube address because that will have to get created once the thing is started. But the request of people want to have a location that they can sort of give to people ahead of the broadcast is certainly a common request.
Chee, I have a question for you, if I may, Dan. If you guys don't have anything at the moment.
We've got plenty, but keep going.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, Chee, just real quick, as far as architecture, when you were building out the structure for Hangouts and everything, because of your work with Gtalk and how the chat client for that kind of grew out of the XMPP project and ultimately Jingle for multimedia, did you look specifically to the role of traditional telephone exchanges as the role that Google would play, where you'd be facilitating the function of handshaking for essentially phone calls and then doing the relays and everything, and then maybe passing it off to each peer? Did you actually use phone exchanges as a model when you put that together and then evolve the idea?
No, we didn't. You might say that it would have been good if we did. Maybe we would have learned some things, but we really just took the learnings that we had from our experiences there, and we really brainstormed around a lot of different models that we thought would work and would also work specifically with the assets that we as Google have, which is a little bit different than what other companies or what a startup might have. So we sort of optimize across the Google technologies and the Google infrastructure.
Yeah, because I think it's really interesting how you've essentially become like an exchange on your own, and then you've taken that generation's old model and then actually taking it a step forward and everything. So I don't know if you actually just took a look at what was done to that point, kind of.
I think there are lots of different ways of doing sort of a multi-way system like this, and it does depend on the infrastructure you have, the bandwidth you have, the internal backbone that you have, your location of data centers, all these things. If we were missing certain parts of that, we probably would have designed things in a different way.
Let me go to Mike Phillips has a quick question, and then we'll go to Hermine. I'm sorry. Mike Phillips, watching on Justin, said, Dan is has anyone asked whether YouTube? I'm not sure. I don't really understand the question. Has anyone asked whether YouTube Live is going to provide raw bandwidth for live broadcasts to compete with Justin and Ustream?
That's what it is.
Wait, so say it again?
Has anyone asked whether YouTube Live is? I'm not sure what he's saying. Is YouTube Live going to provide raw bandwidth for live broadcasts to compete with Justin and Ustream? But he's saying, but it requires a Hangout. Some of the earlier partners, like Clayton here, has. Did I mispronounce it again? Creighton. Jeez. He has it. He has YouTube Live.
I don't have YouTube Live actually.
Oh, you're just a partner, but you're okay.
I don't have YouTube Live.
Okay, so
I wish
Chris,
I had it.
Perillo does, and sometimes you sneak in after hours when Chris is not around, and you have crazy Hangouts. But yeah, those are pre-approved. I think it has to be a Hangout, unless you're like a legacy locked-in partner with Live. That's a very select group.
Yeah, and there's a big program there, and Hangouts is sort of a subset of all of that. What you can do on a Hangout feeding into that YouTube Live infrastructure is really focused around the conversation. Whether they have plans for opening up their YouTube Live infrastructure more broadly, I don't know. I think it was a great partnership to get us that we can do this Hangouts to everyone.
So do you mind if I ask now? Do you mind if I jump in? I had two questions to jump in on. One was just some clarification. You said something earlier in terms on, Chee, you're focusing on teacher Hangouts and temple Hangouts.
Tentpole. Yeah, so it's just the name that we've used internally to sort of categorize them. The tent pole ones are like the big, like it's like holding up the tent. It's the huge hangouts, like the Obama hangouts and stuff like that. And then the teacher ones are like, there are a lot of folks who want to have a broadcast that's really tuned after their small community, their classroom, and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
With purposes not trying to be a movie star or something like that, but just their own purpose. And we decided to focus on that, at least initially.
Thank you for that clarification. Tent pole. Okay,
Tent pole.
I'm hearing now.
Yeah.
All right, so the second question is, excuse me, one of the challenges I've been having is trying to find and aggregate the great content that's out there. I've had a little bit of time off and was like, okay, what do I want to watch? And then going through streams and streams and streams, and loved Robot Underpants, loved some Hangout conversations. Dan, the stuff that you're doing is great, but realized that there were some shows that I really wanted to see and couldn't find them. What do you think is the best approach? And is there going to be something that aggregates or starts to aggregate some of the content that's out there?
We don't have a great answer for that yet. In part, it's because we're looking at all the content that's coming, and then we had some theoretical ideas, but until you see what content you have and how you want to, how they're, what information we can find out about them, not until we really have our heads wrapped around that do I think we can give a good solution. But what I would say is, as I said before, Google's a search company, and I think being able to search for Hangouts and find good results rather quickly is definitely something that you can imagine that as a search company, that's one of the ways that we're going to make that work well.
It's definitely part of it, but it's like TV guide it or something. Is there a way that that was the other question? Is there a way to
have a channel surfer, more curated way? I think that's something that we should explore. I don't know how to quite do that yet.
That's a fair answer. Thank you.
Well, I guess one way is once you find someone who's good, you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. Does it tell you, if someone subscribes to the YouTube channel associated with the Hangout on Air, do you get an email when someone goes live, or just when something's uploaded, or is it just, how does that upload?
I don't think you get noted when they go live. I think you get it when you have the upload.
And the other thing that would, okay, that's a good point. But also, Dan, I want to know, I wanted to find the new stuff that's out there too. So I get that I can follow people that I've been following, but what's more fascinating to me is saying, I want to look for people who've gotten 9 stars or better, or 8 stars by other people on these ratings and on their shows, and maybe even people that are in my search plus my world. And I want to watch their stuff because other people said it was good stuff. Make my, that's on asking.
Right. Those are great ideas.
I also think it's funny if you go into YouTube just over the past couple days, and I think it was Creighton who actually brought this up earlier. If you search in YouTube over the past couple days and you see the number of posts that just random people had and it says testing Hangouts for Air or Hangout for Air test, there's like a million of those things right now, which just proves how successful the platform is being, because it's the hello world of the Hangout generation.
Right. Yeah, I think that's natural in this period. Hopefully that'll die down, and then we'll see those guys going from tests to real broadcasts.
Oh, it's awesome! I just like seeing how many there are, and you always see somebody's looking off to the side,
Yeah.
I feel guilty because I asked Chee. I said, "Hey, can you pop in for 10 or 15 minutes?" And here we are, an hour. Alan, did you have? I'm not sure how Alan's here, but I'm not sure how here he is.
He's out of the Hangout for now.
Okay, so I have to. Here's a comment. Alan's coming back in. Let me look at this top one here. I have to say that while Google Hangouts are great and all, I don't think they'll ever replace my Amstrad video phone circa 2003. After just 2 short hours, I can connect and speak to my sweet Aunt Faye. Well, we can dream. Alan, did you have one of these? I don't want to repeat if you've got one loaded.
I've got nothing loaded since I just crashed.
Okay, how do you handle efficiently so much data? I mean, there could be anything like 1 million Hangouts at a time, including private and private and public. Chee?
Oh, so how do we like deal with all that traffic going back and forth? Like one of the key things is that we don't decode any of that traffic. We just kind of pass it through. We grab it, take it into our backbone, and then we send it across as fast as we can, and we send it back out. So that helps. That helps a lot. Beyond that, I'd say that Google has a very amazing infrastructure for something like this. Like when I came in to the company, I was just floored by what the company infrastructure can do. I don't know what to say beyond that, other than if you think about what's needed in order to run all of YouTube and all of Google search, it's just huge.
I got one last question for you, from me, and then we're going to talk about the most epic Hangout ever. What's your download and upload in your office? If you do a speed test.
In our office here?
Yeah, I assume it's not like Comcast.
I've never done that. I should do that.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
You end up pinging yourself.
Someone give him the speed.
That would be the most epic screen share ever, Chee. If you could do.
It'd probably be off the scales.
That's kind of funny.
Mine's good. I've got 30 down and like 15 up or 10 up or whatever.
Yeah.
But I bet you're faster. I'm just a wild hunch.
Could be. I should give that a try.
Okay. Okay, Chee, thank you so much. Appreciate it for popping in for 10 minutes during
thanks, guys.
our show tonight. You're welcome to hang out. I imagine you get your wife and your cute kids.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out with. Sorry to monopolize a lot of the time here, Hermine.
Oh,
Awesome conversation. Yeah.
we go for like 4 hours sometimes.
Yeah, the pleasure's all ours.
We're the reason he implemented the 4-hour limit. Yeah, this is nothing. We're just getting started. But Chee, thank you so much, and well done.
Yeah.
We're very excited to be using this, and you have a lot to be proud of, and you're a very humble man, and your team is awesome. And so just well done, and we're big fans.
Thanks a lot.
And did you call your stockbroker today? Just kidding. I had to. Sorry.
Yikes. You've been sitting on that one for an hour, haven't you?
There were 38 requests for me to ask that question.
Take that 23 cents to the bank.
38.27 to be exact.
Yeah. Thank you, Chee. Thank you so much, buddy.
Bye.
Okay, so we had an amazing hangout with my good friend, my dear friend, Hermine. And Hermine, why don't you? This was the craziest thing, and it was so awesome. So why don't you, as Alan takes over for a moment, because like I said, I've had about 5 cups of coffee now. So Hermine, will you please tell it? Sorry, too much information. Don't get a visual, Hermine. Tell us this crazy idea you had. I mean, when you first asked me, I was like, "This is insane, and it's so awesome." And tell us the story, because you didn't even think it worked, and you were upset, and you were upset before.
Right.
Tell us this awesome story, Hermine, please.
Start from the beginning. How did you get the idea? What is this? How did you get the idea, and how did you bring it to fruition?
Like everything with me, someone said, "You could never do that." I was like, "Really?" Let's see. I have, you guys know now, Graves' disease, and was planning on getting my thyroid removed maybe in a few months. And I went and met with a few doctors, and I had to find one who I liked their bedside manner, because I got to be able to trust my surgeon. And I wanted them to do the surgery the way I wanted it done. So once I found someone, I knew it was good. And just so happens that he let me. He would videotape it, so I knew it was kind of in, right?
Now, let me ask: how in the world did that conversation come up, and how did it go?
It was awesome. It went like this. To his assistant, "Vanessa, do you think he'd videotape it?" "Well, maybe. Here, I'll put you in touch with him someday." So then I go, picture it. 27 point whatever million Americans have a thyroid issue, and less than half even know about it. If we were to bring something new to the world that no one's ever done before, that could help give the conditions visibility, it can not only help out with what it is that you're doing and trying to achieve, but it could create a better society and a better situation for most. So I really set up the benefit of doing it more so than the act. And I'm sorry, I'm still trying to breathe deeply. And so that's how the conversation started. And then from there, it was a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to get signed off on. And we really did think that we had the hospital's signature.
Now, let me step back again. I apologize that I keep trying to go back. But what was his reaction when you said, I want to videotape I want to video this and send it out live to maybe thousands, millions of people at once?
Sure. What do you want me to do? He's great. I'm telling you, like, there's a community of people who are willing to try things, willing to go the extra mile. And I think the other thing might have been is I don't know that he understood really what an on-air Google Plus Hangout was.
Hermine, I think that he didn't even give a call to his lawyer before that?
No, why would he?
I think doctors are pretty innovative. You know, they like techie stuff. You know, they go, why not? Let's give it a shot.
I think the hospital was the one who didn't necessarily do all the due diligence.
Right.
Because they kind of assumed we were just going to film it. We filmed them before. What's the big deal? And, okay, so we're streaming it. What's the big deal? I think maybe they thought it was more of a closed circuit to a hangout of 10 people that'd be watching. I don't think that they connected that hangout to then be broadcast. I mean, I'm just making reasons at this point. I don't know. So the other thing that was really interesting is that he actually had some openings fairly soon. So I went to connect with him and meet him, and he was like, all right, so you can do it on Wednesday or the following Wednesday. I was like, what? What? What do you mean we can do it that soon? So it could be like 5 days away or almost 2 weeks. So then I had to work everything with work, still try and keep my job floating. I had to do like a will, like attorney stuff, get through HIPAA, make sure I understood what's the difference between Creative Commons and some other stuff. What if something went wrong? Do I really want to do this? Back and forth. It's vacillating a bit. So really, for me, it's definitely a challenge. And at the end of the day, I mean, what we're trying to get across is really for people to start testing their thyroids and how much of a potentially, you know, if you do have a thyroid problem, a simple pill or surgery, depending on what it is your issue is, can make a world of difference. And so we went into the surgery room, and I think what I did is I might have pissed off a nurse or something, because the head nurse came back and was like, no. Dang it. I don't know what happened. So she wouldn't let it go live, and so I was like frantic, because if I give my word on something, it's really like my intent to make it happen. And the belief is, like, there's such a teaching tool. I think sometimes we make things that are simpler a lot more difficult than they should be. You guys know this. And you ultimately saw it. There's a couple computers and an awesome webcam. That's it. And then it made
We've got Sreek trying to find the pictures so we can, so all of us can reshare what the operating theater looked like.
Yeah.
And everyone in the room was cool with it. Now, at what point? Now I understand at least part of it was live. At what point did they cut that off, as far as you know? And how conscious were you? How aware of all of this were you at the time?
At the time, I thought I was very aware. It was in waking up. I couldn't tell you what happened until, you know, they started wheeling me in. I didn't remember anything after they gave me the funny juice, I guess, or whatever, the stuff that makes you say stupid stuff, makes you laugh a little bit. I didn't remember any of it, so I did not know that you guys filmed it. And really what it was a massive tape delay, right? It was
I was actually worried about you being in the pre-op show because, like, when you got word that you said, hey, you know, like, we just talked to legal and they said it's a no-go and everything like that. I remember you sitting up and you had been, you know, so gracious up to that point and, you know, very accommodating and everything. You looked like you were going to just go off on a F-bomb and S-bomb tirade.
I was going to kill her.
And I was like, Hermine, you're about to go into surgery. You may want to calm down. You know?
No, but there was like, how dare you? And then she tried to make it like, well, if you would have given us more time, if you would have followed, you know, like it was my fault. Bitch, I'm not going to call. Oh, sorry, we're live. Dang it.
Well, it's your surgery and you're recollecting what happened and everything. So your words. Okay.
All I was thinking at the time was I'm not going to call anybody out for not doing some aspect of what could have, should have, or supposedly was done, right? Because we got to save the day as much as we can.
Yeah.
But
real quick, let me just let me just show the picture here on the screen for the folks watching. What it is, it's you can see the Hangout. On the left is the cam. At first, the anesthesiologist, who was awesome, was holding the cam up over the surgery area, and then you can see there were two computers. One computer, of course, is the vantage point that we're looking at, the wide shot, and then the Hangout laptop is in the right there with the camera strung across the operating room. So it's kind of not your average operation. And then if Jeff, if you can go and in Mike Downs' page there. Later on, he's got a series of pics that actually show some of the close-ups and stuff. Hermine,
I'll turn my camera off and then see if I can find him, okay?
Hermine, were you at all reluctant to watch it yourself, or did you jump right in there? It must have freaked you out to watch yourself being operated on, right? Especially at 109.
No, you know what? You guys, as hosts, it was Dan McDermott, it was Mike Downs, and Gary Levin was kind of doing the play-by-play from a surgeon's perspective. You guys were so loving, so amazing. I honestly felt like you guys were hosting for like your little sister or someone that you cared about, because what I heard was very respectful, and it kind of honored the situation, whatever was going on.
Okay, I got him up now from the beginning.
Okay, so go ahead and flip through. This is, I guess fairly early on, but that's an amazing picture from, I guess, a C910 webcam, right? Hermine?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, go ahead and you want to. That's the anesthesiologist holding up the webcam initially.
Wow.
That same shot.
Some more shots. This is kind of what a lot of it was like.
I couldn't believe how big the thyroid was. You guys don't have the money shot here. You'll have to actually watch the video to get the money shot.
Yeah, it's at 109, I think, in your video.
Yeah, it's very close to the end. Thank you, 109. About 21 minutes, you see some good incision stuff, if that's what's interesting.
So stop me when you want me to stop, okay?
Were you completely sedated, or I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. I guess I was. They kind of put you under, but it's like they put you so far under that you're even paralyzed. Like they have to put something to make you breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made Google History, G+ history with this, didn't you?
But I think we all make Google+ history every day, and we all make internet history. There's just amazing things that people are always doing on here, and it's how far can you push this forward? I mean, there's no way people can say anymore, well, we can't do this and we can't do that. They had to go in there. They sterilized the cameras. They sterilized the laptops, whatever, getting them OR ready. Like, you can't have any defects, right? They did this all in like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're out. You didn't know it.
Right, exactly.
Well, how many cameras were there?
How many what?
Cameras were there. I mean,
there's three, right? There's two.
There's two, I think.
The C910. There's the laptop that was connected to give you the audio, the visual for the C910, and then there was the other laptop that was viewing in.
So there
that was like three.
No, there's two, because one of them, one of the camera, gets taken over.
It was crazy. We're going to we'll go to a question from Alan one sec, but yeah, it was crazy, because once you were out, we had a problem. We couldn't get the camera to work on the first laptop, and then I think that's when you lost consciousness or whatever. And then the anesthesiologist was great. I was like, okay, go to the other computer and plug it in, and then you go to the top right of the Hangout next to the exit button. There's a little tool thing, and he's like doing it, and he's like, okay, I think I got it. And then,
awesome.
then he was
so you were
you can see me. He's just holding the webcam in his hand.
So were they talking to you on the Hangout, or?
Wow.
Those two
to Dan.
They were at different times. They were talking to us at the beginning and the end, but they were busy, obviously. But they were great. Okay, Alan, what do we got here?
We've got two questions. The first from Skip Jim Rube wanted to say that he wanted to document his hip replacement with video, cleared it with everyone up front, and then a power mad nurse put the kibosh on it.
Yeah, basically that's it in a nutshell.
And I think all of us know. It's the nurses who hold the real power there.
It is, and that was what was crystal clear. And what was interesting is there was a nurse there that was like checking me in, that she and I just didn't get along, and she really didn't want to be on camera. And I remember, because I got to give the review when they called me today, right? So that powerhouse, hungry nurse or anybody like that, don't forget, we kind of do get the last say as customers. But I understand why people don't want to be on camera. There's a multitude of reasons why you don't want to be on the web, right? But you're a nurse. There's going to be people you do and don't want to work on. If you don't want to work on them or don't want to do a procedure, excuse yourself. Go to something different. But don't try and just like ruin the whole situation or the opportunity for, you know, the hospital, your world, yourself, anything of that magnitude. And really, if she was thinking in the hospital's best interest, then kudos for her. I really think it was something that she didn't feel comfortable with. And if that's the case, and that she didn't feel comfortable with it, and she put the kibosh because of it, that's something that she has to deal with. I don't know.
Okay, and we've got this question from PatLaw53. Why did you remove your thyroid? Maybe you could go over that again and really drive home the point.
I have something called Graves' disease. It's it causes an overactive thyroid. Now, I could be on meds for it for a while. It's hard to really balance those out, and so it just a slew of challenges that happens along the way, from not being able to run to being very weak to all these different things. Now, there's a couple of ways then to kill the thyroid, because you have to get it to stop producing so much of this thyroid hormone. You can do radioactive iodine treatment, or you can do surgery. Because I have Graves' disease, it's not the wisest thing to do a radioactive iodine because it can make the eyes bulge more. So I chose not to do that one. Also, I could still have kids, although I'm like, fat chance, right, with my 15-year-old. But I could still have kids, and they don't want to give iodine or radioactive substances to people who are still in their childbearing years. So I think those are the main two, and this is why I chose that one. But really, now I just take a simple pill for the rest of my days, and it gives me the thyroid replacement.
The hormonal supplements?
So overactive.
Hey, Hermine, what does the thyroid actually control in your body? I mean, what does it do?
You know, it's a lot of hormones, but it's from the hormones I understand. And I don't know entirely how these connected: T3, T4, and TSH.
It's your metabolism mainly is what it controls. If you have hyperthyroidism, then your your thyroid is producing too much, and you get to your metabolism rate is too high. You'll lose weight. You'll have too much energy or whatever, and dizziness sometimes. And if it's hypothyroidism, then it produces too little, and you'll be lethargic, sloth-like, that kind of thing, and you'll gain weight. She has hyperthyroid or had hyperthyroidism, which initially they'll treat it with medication up to a point, and then sometimes they just have to make a decision to take it out and just go with a medication regimen. Which she'll have to take for the rest of her life, of course, and then hopefully but not always, this will stop the progression of the Graves' disease.
It also controls growth, and if you have to go on, I think you have to go on hormonal supplements, and then otherwise it will be a little difficult to control the weight. If I'm not.
So you had hyper, right? Which was
hyper, and most people who have hyper lose weight. I unfortunately am one of the rare few who actually gained it, but there are some.
I have
a question for you.
Wait, what were you saying?
I have hypo.
Right. Now I do.
Hypothyroid, and I've gained 10 pounds, so I've got to get back on my medication.
How did you first come to know about it? Did you have any feeling less energetic?
How was it diagnosed?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, can you say that again? I missed it.
How was it diagnosed? How did you discover it?
Oh my gosh, I went to my doctor's office because I didn't know what was going on. I was training for a half marathon last year, right around this time, and I could not run 400 feet. I'd go up a flight of stairs, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I'd walk from my gym to the parking lot, and my legs would be shaking just walking down the stairs. I didn't know what was going on, and I had a lot of swelling in my hands and feet, and I was always really hot or really cold.
Was it all? Did they start with checking your TSH, or did they do a complete thorough? Because I know that at some time I was told that my TSH is not regular, not normal. So I'm just curious to know.
So then they did a slew of blood tests, and they saw that I can't remember if it was the T3 or the T4 was out of whack. And then I finally went to and so they go, okay, you have an overactive thyroid, or you have a hyperactive thyroid. But then she started into me like, have you been taking drugs from Canada? Have you been like trying to lose weight the inappropriate way? So I was like, okay, the 5-letter word that I said earlier was kind of running through my head. So I was like, okay, well, I don't trust you anymore with any of my health concerns. Thanks for finding out what was wrong. So then I went to an endocrinologist, and then they did further tests, and they can tell there that you have a certain hormone that shows the Graves' disease, so that it's actually like a naturally occurring thing, as opposed to, you doing something to try and speed up your metabolism.
There's one perspective I also wanted to talk about, because as a broadcaster, I was very honored to be with you and Dan, again, with the pre-show, and actually going through that whole thing about you saying, okay, well, I'm ready, I'm ready to broadcast. This is something I really want to do to bring awareness to what I'm going through and hopefully motivate other people to get checked. And then, your emotions as you said you were, the experience of being in a hangout with trusted friends, but also broadcasting and, vocalizing what you were going through actually helped you deal with the normal anxiety that you normally feel when you're about to go into surgery. So I think that was a very innovative moment, and, it was a testament to your bravery. The larger picture I also thought was that you also served to educate a lot of the members of our community who kind of see Hangouts on air and they're like, I'm really not into that kind of thing, or I have kind of a, ho-hum, boring life. I don't know what to do. This just proved, and you are to thank for that people can embrace this new technology as the new means of documenting and communicating their life. They don't necessarily have to do, the most personal of experiences like a wedding or, the birth of their child, or, a very serious surgery like you have and everything. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you have actually demonstrated through your courage of showing people how to use this platform, not only to take a stance on a particular issue, but also just to be able to share your life and do that. And I know that that's really going to motivate people. I actually told a lot of my colleagues who are professional broadcasters about this, and they were like, really? And the other thing they were saying is, when I said how the hospital's legal team came down and they said, okay, well, we realize you talked to some people before, and they said this is a teaching hospital, and they said it's good to go. We're going to put an end to that. And my colleagues and everything went ballistic about it, and they were like, wow, that is a huge story right there. So I also think on that front, you made a lot of headway about using this platform and what its implications are going to be on the future of medicine and of sharing stuff and of communication in general. So I was honored to be a part of it. And, again, thank you for letting me do it. And thank you for your bravery and your courage.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for joining, and thank you for your willingness to say, okay, this doesn't sound like anything, but we're going to give it a shot. We're going to go in there with her and see what happens.
We got a comment from the Justin stream from Mike Phillips is watching there, and we're looking at the Justin comments and the YouTube live comments and the comments on Google+. For Hermine, it's interesting. He's Mike Phillips, who's a regular on the show. He said, according to my doctor friend, he said thyroid medication abuse is pretty common among women. That's why she was asking. And he said he has a friend who's a doctor. And I said, well, why would they abuse it? What's the advantage? And he said that according to my doctor friend, a lot of women use it to lose weight and as an energy booster. They take a greater than prescribed dose. And when someone tests hyper instead of hypo, doctors will often investigate whether they're getting thyroid medication from Canada to hype up their metabolism. So I guess it's...
I don't doubt it, but I think as a doctor, there's a couple of things you should do. One of them is due diligence, right? So when someone comes and they test for that, you got to watch how you ask. That's number one. Number two is, when someone tests hyper, my recommendation would then be to do the secondary test with the blood samples, hopefully, and find out why it is that they test hyper before you call them in the next time. Because it is definitely a risk. If somebody comes in there and they're having a real problem and you tell them it's because of some over-the-counter pill they're taking, what if you offend them so much that they don't want to go to another doctor? They don't even want to be seen for it again because they think you're nuts and there's nothing wrong with them. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's something that you balance in the profession, and it's why it's important to have a really good bedside manner.
I would think that's the issue. It's how you phrase the question. I thought I was
Absolutely.
having a heart attack or something one time, and I went to the emergency room. I'm waiting for the bill, and I was sitting there. I actually couldn't sign my name. I don't know what was wrong. I think it was either dehydration or something was wrong. I don't know. They don't know after they did a CAT scan and everything. But I remember one of the questions was, who's your next of kin, and I was like, or no, what was, I forget the question. Do you have, I forget, it was something like if you're gonna die or something. I was like, oh my God. But I think it's a reasonable question, Hermine, but it's the way you ask it. You know what I mean? You need to
Absolutely.
be comforting,
Yeah.
especially when you're stressed out like that. George Cozy in the Netherlands wants to know, all this Hangout stuff is interesting, but what ultimately matters is this: how do you feel? Are you comfortable in your own skin after this procedure? Does it feel all right? Do you feel any different?
It feels all right now. I know if I talk for too long, it's like harder. I got to take deeper breaths. And my voice isn't totally back. It's kind of a bit more hoarse, a bit more lower. I got some monotone, but
You got Brenda Vaccaro voice.
and the other thing is, I know hormonally I'm going through something different because I am really like, kind of like snappy and more sister girl, as Dave would call it, than more than normal. So
We think you're the same. Can you tell us about your recovery path? How did it go?
oh my gosh, it was really.
When was the surgery, and how quickly did they discharge you, for starters?
Within 24 hours, it was on Wednesday. I was discharged Thursday by noon. So it was a little painful the first night. I don't like morphine at all, and I actually had to ask for it, in part because I couldn't sleep. Like, they had somebody coming in every hour to check on me, pulse ox, breathing treatment, blood work, which I can't complain, right? Because at least they're checking on you, but dang. So I needed the morphine a bit to sleep. I was very happy to get home and get a really good night's sleep. And to manage to do it outside of a hangout was really good.
Yeah.
So it was really quick, and I don't have any, like, the scar doesn't hurt at all anymore. It's just a breathing exercise and getting that area strong again from having that tube down my throat, I think.
Okay, let's. Hermine, it was an honor to be part of that, but it was just amazing. Even though I screwed up because I had to switch, and there's no audio of me, which may be a good thing, I guess, a mixed blessing. But in the actual video, there, just for folks who are going to watch this, and we'll put the link in the description to the video. But Hermine is yawning, poor girl. But yeah, it was. There are times when you see me talking and you can't hear any audio because I had to switch the setup after the lawyers, they lawyered up and they said you can't do it live. And so I had to switch computers to this setup where I have a computer here that's the Hangout, and then I'm recording on Justin here, mainly because my CPU is at 85% right now, or between 70 and 80%. So I run the Hangout over here when I'm doing Justin. And so anyway, that's why there's some
So
awkward.
Cozy, thanks for asking.
Okay, so Alan just left. So let me, before while we wait for him to come back, Gary Levin, any thoughts on, we just finished discussing the epic Hangout that we were part of, and you were so fantastic, Gary, guiding us through the procedure. Gary is an ocular surgeon. So we were very formal. I said, Dr. Levin, what is your, what are they cutting now? What are they slicing and dicing? So do you have any final thoughts on this?
Just popped in here when you were asking me the question, but I've thought about it all. Can you hear me okay, Dan?
Yeah, you're okay now. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I just think it was very good. No thanks to me. It was just mostly Hermine and you, and I think Mike Downs. I think it was fortuitous that I was able to be there, and it made the meeting much more powerful. I think it's a very workable format. I think the biggest barriers are going to be bureaucratic and administrative to get the powers that be to accept this new technology, just like everything else. Hospitals and doctors always tend to be resistant to change, but I think this is really a game changer. As I said in one of my quotes, it's a quote, "Brave New World." And if I think people are not going to adapt to it, they're going to get just overrun in the tsunami. We saw this happen with managed care in medicine. We see a lot of it going on. The doctors have just kind of been dragged along despite their protestations, just like Obamacare. A lot of us are still protesting, but it's happening one way or the other. It'll be modified somewhat, but it's going to be very good. But I think I need to do one thing before I do anything else, and I need to check on the patient. Hermine, how are you doing? I can't hear Hermine.
Yeah,
She's muted.
Well,
I was going well. It was great. You know what? The quote that I'm doing well again. I came home yesterday and made dinner for my daughter and myself. So that was like everything's good again, right? When you're back home cooking.
That's right. And your voice sounds much better today. Much better. So the horse has gone away. That's good.
I want to go to Alan in a sec because he's going to tell us about an app he's working on and some other stuff here. But I have one more question for Gary. I know you've discussed this with some of your medical colleagues. What kind of reaction are they getting? This is an amazing use of this, and it's exciting, right? How are they responding to it?
Ones I've spoken to about it, they've been very happy about it. In fact, I came across something on Twitter or something where some people had been at a meeting, or they were somewhere, or they were in the operating room. They were operating and they were attending surgeon, and they were tweeting from the surgery room, and they were also using TwitPic or YFog or something like that, and they were sending just still pictures of not the patients so much, just but of X-rays and other laboratory things along with the tweeting, and they thought that was a really big deal. So it's like we're about to land on Mars, and the Russians are about to go to the moon,
right?
That kind of thing.
Okay, and then I think Jason Salas in Guam had a quick question here.
Yeah, Doctor. Again, a real honor to be working with you during the pre-op show. But I'm just wondering, by the grace of God, nothing went wrong during Hermine's procedure, and we're all obviously very happy about that. Speculate for us, if you can, Doctor. If this were to be a more common practice, and say someone was having an appendectomy or something like that, and something went wrong during the procedure, what would be the implications of that if a live surgery was being broadcast out to the world and there was a mistake and everything? What would the situation be then?
Well, I think there's two possibilities. If something were going on, the surgeon would have the complete capability of turning the broadcast off.
Lower your voice.
And
quit patting yourself on the
I
back.
don't know whether or not it's possible to build in more of a delay on Google Plus, or then becomes the possibility of recording the whole thing and uploading it at the very end of the procedure if nothing goes wrong. The worry on the part of the doctor and the hospital as well. If something goes wrong, they might sue us this or the other. Well, it's a double-edged sword, because if you have a documentation with a video, it's documented. And it shows what happened. If the doctors do the proper things and do the accepted standard procedures, they're going to be protected by having a recording. Typically, lawyers look for some kind of evidence, and if they have evidence that doesn't support their something or other, that the practice was out of the ordinary, then they might have something to stand on. But if the video shows what happens, the doctors do the right thing, the nurses and the staff performs up to speed, things happen. That's why doctors are professionals, to be calm in the face of crisis and to do the right thing. I mean, look at what happened with the airliner that landed in the Hudson with Sully. He became a hero not because something went wrong, but because he knew what to do to pull it out. So I think that would actually work in a positive way, Jeff. Jason, I'm sorry. Thanks for asking that question.
Thank you, Doctor.
It was epic. It was awesome, and it was great when you pointed out. I missed it initially when they did a high five, the surgeon and the assistant lead at the end. That was the best part, because then we knew. As I told Hermine, I was real scared because at one point the camera froze, Hermine, and you could see it on the video, and I got real nervous because they were like all standing back from you, and there were hands down, and it looked like this big solemn, and I thought it was live still, like they were all standing still in shock or something, And so I was like, oh my goodness. And then I realized the camera had frozen. So
Oh,
I was like,
so-
oh dear, this is bad.
So Dan, you thought something had gone terribly wrong. They ran away from the camera to go off to consult and decide what they were going to do next.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, well, I was surprised at the end that they were hamming up. They hammed that up a little bit at the end when they high-fived. They were kind of happy they had done it, and they were glad it went so well.
Yeah, I think it was great. And it was the first experience for them as well. So they were fantastic. It was just a wonderful time. So, okay.
I
Hermine's
hit
going
the
to
wrong button.
Uh-oh. All right, so let's talk about some actual Google Plus stuff, the generic stuff, after we've had this.
It's quiet now.
Oh, I think she's got. We're having a technical issue with
Yeah.
Sheila.
Glad you're
Can you hear us,
feeling
Sheila?
better, Hermine.
Thank you. Thanks, Sheila.
Okay, thank you, Hermine.
Yeah,
she's tired. She's a trooper.
Have a good night.
Okay, Alan. As you pop in and out of the Hangout due to your I don't know, DSL or dial-up.
I'm having some issues this evening. Yeah, no. First, I wanted to talk about Hermine's was not the only big hangout this week, and that was there were actually a couple of other little teeny tiny hangouts that kind of made the news. Literally made the news in one case. The New York Times ran a hangout that it featured on its front page, where they invited, it was either 5 or 6 people, to come talk to the United States Ambassador to the United Nations. And that was about a 30-45 minute conversation, which was pretty interesting. I watched a good chunk of it. It was probably a little bit formal. Everyone was taking turns asking questions. And, it felt very regulated until the end when the moderator said, so, does anyone else have any more questions? Just anything else to say? And it got a little more casual right at the end. But it's clear the New York Times is going to be trying to do this more and more. So that was encouraging to see. And a hangout that I missed, I forgot to look for it again, was that they held a hangout from, I believe it was the top of the Himalayas. And somebody can probably find that again. We put the URL in our show notes for it. So that was also interesting. So it's clear that Hangouts are getting more and more popular for everything that's going on out there. And more I'm seeing the Hangouts there. So I think this is a great thing. I think all of us would agree. I just wanted to highlight a couple of other big Hangouts that took place recently.
I think it's people, really seeing the platform for what it truly is and really saying it's like, hey, we can be as creative, within reason, like as we want to be, or we can incorporate this for, some really neat things, or even if we just want to do some crazy trivial thing, hey, let's go do a broadcast from the Himalayas, because we can, let's do something from the top of the Empire State Building, just because it's never been done.
Wouldn't it be epic if they did it from the space station or something?
Oh, they probably will. I can't imagine that they wouldn't do something.
Well,
like
I mean,
that.
we all, Ron Duran has said that he would love to see that sort of thing. We've got astronauts who are very involved on Google Plus, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see one soon.
Boy, I bet that would test bandwidth. Can you imagine? I wonder what their bandwidth would be from space, like 0.01.
But we've talked about this before, guys, in the past about how this is going to affect mainstream media. And Dan, I know you've got this is a topic very, very close to your heart, because now, of course, with every man, woman, and child who has a Google account on Earth, essentially having the potential to be a full-time broadcaster and a live one at that, what's to stop, like, say, a legislative hearing or a trial or or a surgery or a public hearing, like in smaller communities. And, you've got all your credentialed journalists, and they all gather together like in the media room, and they've all got their badges and, nice suits and everything. And all of a sudden, some kid walks in who's 19 years old, and he's like, hey, I really enjoy politics, and I run a weekly Hangout show. I've come down with my laptop and my webcam. Essentially, I am a journalist, too. I should be able to cover this event.
People might just realize how good they are at broadcasting by just trying it.
Yeah. I actually did a Hangout from the jury room when I was being selected for a jury. So
there you go. I mean, is the whole concept of a credentialed journalist, does that hold any water anymore? Because everybody has this capability. Before, it was just affiliation with a recognized organization. Now you've got the enabling technology that makes everybody a professional.
One of the most let me say talk to that real quick, and then Alan, Jason. One of the surprising things I've saw. We're a member of the Virginia Press Association, so we can get.
You're muted, Dan.
No, Dan, we can hear you. It's Sheila that's having the problem.
Yeah, I think Sheila, you've got an incoming audio issue. Because I'm not sure.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, but yeah, Jason, what the Virginia Press Association, we can send our picture, we get the the state police press pass, right? But mostly, you just make them up, and you put press in your picture or whatever, and you give them to reporters, and it works, And you put the logo on. They're like, oh, I had a Secret Service agent say, "Well, do you have a press pass?"
You get
and
the
I showed her
fedora hat that says press on it.
Yeah, exactly. But I was actually covering when I was covering Obama, then Senator, or I guess he was president then. I covered him before and after. But I had a press pass, and it was just something I did on my laser printer. And she's like, "Oh, okay, that's official."
That's strange. I can hear you, Alan.
Sheila, you may need to jump out of the Hangout and then maybe rejoin.
Yeah, or just F5. Just press F5 and try to refresh, Sheila.
Okay.
Okay, so Jason, the Virginia Press Association is actually creating a membership category for online-only sites, which is very shocking to me, because of course they're very, trying to cling to things like legal ads, only in newspapers and sort of like that, because it's the Newspaper Press Association, right? It's not TV stations. And so I was very surprised, but you're right. The gap between Joe Sixpack with a cell phone camera and uploading to YouTube and you with the camera crew is narrowing dramatically. And the impact that each of those things have is narrowing.
Yeah, but there's also,
hang on. I mean, we've seen some of this in the past, and, South Korea has had this kind of a model for quite a few years now, where, essentially they've had huge flocks of citizen journalists covering the nation. I think the aspect of this that I find most interesting, and that I'm kind of curious how it's eventually going to resolve itself, are around the legal issues. Because right now, journalists, in a lot of cases, get just a little bit more extra legal protection on things. Does Virginia have a shield law, for example? Offhand, I don't remember. But if it does have a shield law, does it now cover these Twitter journalists?
Interesting, Alan.
That's a great
Go ahead, Jason.
That's a great point, Alan. And I've always said that, my press pass, I tell my friends, it's not necessarily the places that my press credentials can get me into, it's the places it can get me out of. And, Dan, I wanted to ask you about that, since you brought up the thing about the Virginia, like there's an online, I guess, what do you call it again? The online journalism?
Yeah, what they're doing, I got an email that they're considering it. It's an issue.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the status is, but basically, to be a full-fledged member of the Virginia Press Association, you have to be approved for legal ads. You have to be at least weekly or daily, et cetera, to be a voting member. Or you can be an associate member, because my papers are free, so we can't do legal ads. You have to. It's this ridiculous, incestuous system in Virginia. In order to do legal ads, you have to have a paid circulation. You can't be a free paper. So the local weekly that is paid has a circulation of under 3,000. My circulation in Warren is 9,000. So we're bigger than the daily and the weekly combined, but we can't do legal ads. So we can't join the Virginia Press Association as a voting member. We can join as an associate member, but we have all the other rights. I mean, we can be in the contest if you want and participate in everything. But you just can't vote.
How does that deal with broadcasting? They don't have to do legal ads, right? I mean, they're like a.
They can't do legal ads. The broadcasters have their own. That would be the VAB, the Virginia Association of Broadcasters, which has basically it's a lobby. Like when the legislature wants to allow websites to do legal ads, or to allow a community a county or town to save money and not have to put them in the paper, they'll fight and they donate money and they'll raise holy cane with the legislature. And so it's a lobbying thing, and also they bring us advertising a lot. They bring a lot of advertising to the paper when folks go.
Okay, now here's the thing I was wondering, because if they are starting to segment, maybe into journalists into the online group, and they take the citizen journalists or the DIY crowd, and the person who shows up with a netbook and a really nice Logitech C910 product placement. Is that group going to be subject to be the redheaded stepchild / junior varsity level, and are they going to be treated differently as opposed to somebody from the New York Times who just walks in, kid straight out of Columbia, with a New York Times badge, and are they going to be treated any differently? Because among us, who the heck knew who Perez Hilton was?
Yeah,
before he started covering the celebrity beat.
There was a case in California when that guy Gizmodo found that phone, right? Apple phone, and they basically they came in and they searched their offices, and they said that they weren't a reporting type situation, even though it was a blog, right? So and they seized his equipment and all that stuff. So all that didn't apply to it at that point. So it's kind of interesting. I think it's a gray line. I don't know how they're.
It didn't apply according to the interpretation of the local authorities, and I think they ended up dropping everything against him.
But they still seized everything, and they
just like the Department of Justice. Just this week, wrote a letter. Was it the Baltimore Police Department, right, Jason? I think you commented on this post.
Yeah.
They were, all these crazy, insane things. It's like, oh my God, are we in North Korea or the United States? And some of these local police departments are arresting people using the wiretapping statutes to say that you cannot legally record us in the line of duty. Because and they're using the audio. And I can understand it's frustrating, Jason, as you can't. You're trying to effect an arrest of some guy who's out of control, is on meth or whatever, and there's some guy on the street corner screaming, the world is watching with his phone, recording a YouTube video. Then that's stressful. I can understand that, but that's part of their job. With the Department of Justice, they weighed in and they actually defended the Constitution, which is nice. And they said that you absolutely have a right in public to record the police on duty as long as you are somewhere that you are legally entitled to be. Not just in your home or your property, but as long as you're on the street or anywhere that you're legally allowed to be, then you have a right to record the police.
Does that include raid, and does that include secretive operations?
I think if you're across the street, in other words, if you're where a citizen is allowed to be, they might put up the yellow tape.
Hostage negotiations are incredibly sensitive.
I think there's no asterisk on the First Amendment, right? It doesn't say except in the case of. It says you have a right to freedom of speech, and they've interpreted it that broadly. And it's just this outrageous stuff where some guy is arresting. Like there was it's just. But the big moment on this, back to your earlier point, the big moment for this was in the press conference, an early press conference with President Obama, when they brought in the Huffington Post reporter, and for the first time ever, a blog asked a question in the White House briefing room of the president. That was a game changer. The question is not whether you work for the New York Times or whether it's, Jason Salas's personal blog with 12 viewers, right? Because this gets to how do you determine what is and what isn't the media, and they can't get in that business. The question is the standards. And this gets to Crystal Cox, who was on the show earlier, a long time ago. The blogger who a judge said is not a journalist. He didn't say that because she was a blogger, although that's what got a lot of media attention. He said it because, in his opinion, he looked at what are the standards? Do you check your sources? Do you use commonly accepted standards of editorial? That sort of thing.
Dan, this goes to a question. This goes to a question that was from George Cozy, and he asked, "What would Hangouts on Air do with press accreditations? Now everyone with a phone has a mobile TV studio."
Precisely.
And it's a good question, but I think what it's going to do is it's going to change those press accrediting associations. They're now going to say, "Hey, look, if you want to be treated like a journalist, if you want." If you want the rights of a journalist, and I put rights in quotes here, if you want the power of a journalist, you need to sign up to our organization and pay our organization fee. And if you get in trouble, we're going to be the ones who will be standing in your corner in court to say, hey, yeah, this person's a journalist, and you know that they're a journalist because we're telling you that they're a journalist.
Alan, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Alan, this makes me think about something I heard this week from the New York Times that we're interviewing Ambassador Susan Rice at the United Nations, and it was a New York Times reporter. I can't remember his name, but they had a hangout with her. There were 5 people. It was a really good hangout. It was as good as what we did. And the point was, the New York Times reporter said, well, we used to have readers. Now we have viewers. And that he did an on-air recognition of how much things are changing. The other thing I'm wondering about is Google. Google must have done some advanced work on this with Obama in terms of their liabilities, what was going on. And I'm wondering if Google is going to be treated now like a network, a broadcast network, instead of just a search engine and a goofy social media place. Is Google going to share in some of this liability if some reporter gets on there? And will Google get sued if they do something illegal?
I think Google is actually not going to take the stand, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not all of these things. And I don't work for Google, so I can't predict what they're going to do.
Let me ask Jason a question.
Let me finish.
Go ahead, Alan. Sorry.
My guess is that Google will take the position that they are a common carrier, so that they're just sharing anything that comes across. They're not generating the content. They're not the ones that are that are in control of the content. They're just helping people generate the content. And that's a much, much safer position for them to be in.
And there is a lot of precedent for that too, Ellen.
And that's precisely what the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, when it first came out, that's what it sought to do for internet service providers, to say that if people transmit porn, if they transmit hate-oriented material, as when I used to work in the ISP business, people can't take legal action against me as the ISP, even though I was the conduit of that. I'm only providing a facility for that information to transmit through. I'm neither endorsing nor encouraging the transmission of that type of material. But you can't hold me liable for whatever end users do.
But that raises an interesting question. How does Google Drive, suppose you have a lot of copyrighted MP3s or videos on your Google Drive, sharing that from Google Drive to Google Plus or whatever, how does it really differ from doing that with Mega Upload?
Well, you put that into your terms of service when you first start out, and they say you agree by whether you're actually reading this 47-page document or not, or whether you're just clicking the checkbox and clicking next, that you willingly admit that you're not going to post anything that's
right. But if people do, is it like something Google is going to track, or
like Chee said earlier, you suspend the account, you flag the user's account, and you just suspend the service, and you just slap hands, but you just slap the person's hand a little bit. I wanted to address something that Alan said really, really quickly, because he brought up that excellent question from George. Thank you so much, George, and of course, Alan. I think it's whenever we reference Alan, he drops out. He's got a voice activated.
Just call him prisoner.
He's very shy.
He's got a voice activated bandwidth restriction apparently. But I want to talk about something. And Dan,
I think when it gets to the threshold of his knowledge, it automatically breaks down.
Yeah, exactly. And Dan, I think you can speak to this, because I personally feel that the two things in the social age which have now hold a heck of a lot less water than they used to are, from the media's perspective, is the concept of a press credential, with citizen journalism having blown up so much as it has, and then from the concept of the people who actually create the stories is the whole concept of the press embargo, because it's ridiculous that we as the media have to hold on to either a juicy or some sort of significant or important bit of information, because it's just going to get leaked by some kid out on Facebook, and then everybody knows about it, and then when we as the media put it out, we seem inferior because we're 2 hours behind the pace, just because the source that gave it to us said respectfully, can you not issue this political statement until we give you the green light?
Well, okay, I hear what you're saying. Like, we'll get the State of the Union address early, that kind of thing, and we have to hold it. But let me say this, for anyone watching, if you're in my circles, I've opened this Hangout to everyone in my circles, and the rest of you in it are welcome to do the same, because we're kind of at the tail end here. So our featured guests have left, and you have to kind of keep spaces for them. Our guests have left. But Jason, perhaps the solution here is for folks who want to do Hangouts on air. The key point is this. The key point is, are you a responsible journalist? That doesn't mean you don't have an opinion. But does it mean you're making stuff up, or does it mean you're following standard accepted editorial practices? So you're not like an activist as much as, or whatever, I don't know. But maybe the VA, each state's association of broadcasters, which you would be a member of, your station would, maybe they could create the citizen journalist thing and sort of self-regulate the way the Virginia Bar Association does. And maybe each state's press association, as Virginia's thinking about doing, could create a division and a membership category for bloggers, and they'll come up with criteria that the bloggers decide, not like you're Republican or Democrat or anything, but just you follow the standard accepted things, and as long as you meet those criteria, and they should be broad. I mean, they should not be too strict, but just a generally, if you want to write about town council and you do a blog and you agree to just standard, I don't know, some set of criteria, not you're an insane person or something, but you're, one person's insanity is another person's revelation, so who knows?
Okay, well, I did want to add something because that was a very poignant topic that the participant who we shall now and forever refer to as Mr. Furstenberg, because every time we say his first name, he gets dropped out of the damn Hangouts, and because he's got voice-activated bandwidth filters. Maybe that's your Hangout app that you're working with, but I thought that was a very good topic that you dropped into the rundown, because now that the New York Times is actually using this, and Dan, maybe you feel the same way, I think Hangouts are the perfect unifying platform that newspapers can actually implement, because it's not doing like a video report, which newspapers have messed around with, maybe a little bit less. And those of us in TV are saying, okay, well, if newspapers want to become video sources, that's fine. They'll never be able to shoot and edit and produce video at the scale that we're able to, so they'll never be able to catch up. But Hangouts are perfect because you can do these long-form interviews. You can still be timely, you can still be topical, but you won't be cannibalizing the reports that you actually produce for print anyway. So this is the perfect complement to help newspapers stay relevant. How do you guys feel about that?
That's an interesting point. I think my feeling, though, is the New York Times might not exactly be the best example of that in either way. I mean, the New York Times has been doing video production for decades now. I mean, they're not exactly novices at that sort of thing. The Hangout from them was, as Hangouts go, one of the slickest I've seen. It wasn't as slick as the President Obama one, but it was a lot slicker than the Governor Romney one. It looked professional. And I'm not sure, I think you make a good point, though, that I don't know, they've got to find an interesting balance. They've got to be able to say, hey, look, we're professional enough that we're not the guys, shooting with their cell phone and then printing out stuff on their blog. They need to look more professional than that, but they're never going to be as professional as the television station down the block. So it's a good question. I don't know. But I think it all comes down to the value of the network. This is all about Metcalfe's law, and that is what Hangouts provide. They provide you to tap into this exponentially growing resource that you can, the whole concept of the circle thing and everything like that. And it's all about, the New York Times or the Washington Post or, or Dan's very fine papers and everything like that, to actually be able to kind of keep a leg up on the Joe Sixpacks and everything by just saying, well, we've naturally got a much larger audience and everything, so we can kind of leverage the value of networking. And
all right, let me ask you some number questions, Jason. What if you're uncomfortable with this, that's cool. But I'm going to tell you for my papers, our average ad is anywhere from about $50 and reaches about 20,000 readers for Warren County Report. That's our flagship paper. The Lynchburg Times is actually bigger circulation, but our flagship is Warren. How many people watch? What's your cume or whatever? Like the 6 o'clock news, I guess, is probably your peak, except for the primetime network programming.
Because of the way things work around here, 88% of Guam's workforce works from 8 in the morning until 5 at night. Actually, I'm sorry, it's 92%. There was a Department of Labor report that came out. So the 6 p.m. news for us, that's our flagship product. The 10 p.m., we used to do it live. Not that many things happen and everything. So these days, because of the economy, it's a rebroadcast. So 6 p.m. is like what would be considered like the 11 p.m. In your markets and everything. On a good night, which is Monday through Thursday, we'll get around, I believe it's between 90 and 110,000 viewers.
Now, what does an ad cost? 30-second spot.
I know it's several $100s for the for the 6. And if it's going to be like the primetime real estate within the first block of stories before the first commercial break, it's a few $100, I believe.
Okay, so obviously a car dealer who's in every week, every night was going to get a deal, and someone who wants to buy a one-time ad, is going to say pay $500, $600 for a spot in there, and maybe the car dealer's getting it for $300 or whatever it is. Let's say it's $500 a spot. How many minutes of commercials in that 6 to 6:30?
For every commercial break, like usually it's between 2 minutes and 3.5 minutes.
And how many? I mean, what's the total in that half hour? Would you guess is commercials?
Oh, the total aggregate commercial. The total time or the number of commercials?
The total number of minutes of paid commercials, not your promos.
Oh, okay. 3, 5. Let's say 8. So
Okay.
we have in a half-hour show we have 22 minutes of content.
So you've got 16 commercials if they're 30s, and let's say just rough estimate $500 a piece. You're making $8,000 in a 30-minute period.
Something like that.
Okay, so my paper, that's about what a paper will do. So we're getting now contrast that with what you make on the web. This is the problem. This is the problem with the web content. You cannot pay for you to send a crew to the courthouse, right? You got to pay. You got 1 or 2 people, depending on your market size and how big a deal it is, how big a story it is. The networks will have a sound person, a producer, and a camera person. The big markets will have a camera person and a reporter, and then the small markets will have a reporter who has a camera. That's basically how it works. If you see someone with an overhead
They do the
boom,
one-man band thing.
yeah, if you see someone with an overhead boom, that's a network or a big city. So here's the thing. A blog, we all go to aggregators. We'll go to, if you're a Republican, you're at Drudge Report. If you're liberal, you're at Huffington Post. If you're a moderate, then you're on Yahoo News or whatever. But I was doing a speech for anyone who's listening to my speech today at the Rotary Club. I'm going to repeat this story. If you're looking at Drudge Report, and you see the funny story, man accidentally chops off arm with homemade guillotine, which was a real story. You click over to whatever newspaper had that story, and then you read that story, and you probably gloss over the ads, if at all, and then you exit that tab and you go back to the aggregator. So most people who watch the news will watch all of those 16 spots, or most of them. Some won't. Some will just tune in for the sports. But a large number of that 100,000 people will watch that, right? So you're reaching 100,000 people, and you're making $8,000. That's enough to pay, and then you do it every day, and you got the noon news or 10 o'clock repeat. So which is free because you're doing a repeat, like O'Reilly. I mean, they get 4 million viewers the first time and then 2 million the second time, but it doesn't cost them anything to make the second show, right? It's a rerun. So in my case, we'll have like 20,000 readers, so 1/5 as much, and we'll make anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. So if you compare it to the web, what do you get CPM? What's your cost per 1,000 clicks? If you're selling an ad on the internet, what do you get? Like Leo will get 45 CPM, $45 per 1,000 views. That's what he charges for advertising. Leo Laporte at Twit. At least that's the last he said.
Yeah.
So on the web, you get nothing, right? You don't have enough money to pay for a news crew to go out and cover if it was just web content. You could do this kind of thing because there's no production cost really. It's just your time. But to actually have a crew, I mean, to try to create for a local audience of a limited number of people, to try to actually create a web version of a TV station, you might be able to do it in New York or DC or some big market, LA, but you could not do it in a small town. Absolutely not, because there's not enough hits to generate the revenue you need to support it.
Well, we're also kind of an outlier here, just because the company that I work for, we own and operate. I mean, like we're not. We're a network affiliate, but we're not an O&O. I mean, we're a family-owned operation out here, but we own and operate 3 television channels, 2 radio stations, and the web department. So the R&D group, which is the one I run, because just the anchoring thing, they just threw me in to do that. So that's like my secondary job. But for the most part, it's because we have all of that consolidation and everything like that. It's at first glance, it would seem like we have this tremendous overhead, but actually by pooling all of those resources towards the same end and everything like that, there's actually this pretty significant cost savings operationally that we've been able to see. I know that kind of sounds weird because we have the 3 TV channels and the 2 radio stations and the web stuff, but by actually focusing all of that towards the same end and everything like that, we integrate all of that, and because TV is the big money maker and everything, to a certain degree, and I don't want to speak about this too much, but it also helps to subsidize our web operations.
Do in some cases, like if
just
you,
because we're doing so well with TV, and because we're no affiliate.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
If you have a hot story, if you report on something and you have a hot story, is that probably going to run with the still from your video in the newspaper as well, or you know what I mean? Or I mean, in other words, like or on the radio. I mean, did they share content to save costs? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The big thing is most people who watch
our news product.
I apologize. I'm stepping on
you.
Oh,
go ahead. My bandwidth is lagging over here.
Your bandwidth is lagging, and we're getting a delay. So
No, not at all. My bandwidth's getting laggy over here.
Yeah, so it sounds like I'm stepping on them, being rude, and I don't mean to, because it's like there's a delay. It's kind of like the early days of satellite when Ted Koppel would go to Moscow and there would be like a 10-second delay or something. But yeah, that's interesting. And the big difference is the advantage of newspapers, and is that most people pick up a newspaper. And then we're going to go to Alan in a second. Most people pick up a newspaper and look at every page. So they're being exposed to all the pages. They may not linger on a page, but if an ad catches their eye or a picture or a story is interesting, then so you're delivering 100, 150, 200 ads to each person who picks the paper up on average. The advantage of television is it's a 30-minute block, and you've got 16 commercials in there. And so most people, not all, but most people will watch that 30-minute show and be exposed to 16. But on the web, it's different because most people, because of aggregators, not that there's anything wrong with that, will go and pick out, they'll use the aggregator of their choice, and they'll go to that story at that website, read that one story, and then close that tab and go back to the aggregator and go to the next website. So they're only exposed to a couple ads. So it's very difficult. I mean, a typical, a typical thing, and then we're going to Alan, a typical website will get a CPM or cost per thousand in the single dollar amount. Whereas I have like $1 in advertising almost per paper printed. So I have a CPM of $1,000, which is 200 times what Leo gets for Twit. But then he's got 500,000 and I've got 20,000, So
I will say, I guess,
that's why it's difficult to make money on the web. Jason, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me just close with this because I really want to talk about the Hangout apps and Mr. Furstenberg's fine work. But the fact that my company, they pool all the resources and they dedicate, all of those media outlets towards the same end and towards covering news and, towards producing local programming and everything, why it helps with us, and because we do have that subsidization for our web operations, we don't have to have those exhaustive concerns for the most part that you have about CPM and everything. Because we're doing so well with TV, it actually allows us to flourish a little bit more on the web than the average company was, because we can kind of stretch ourselves a little bit more out over Facebook and over Twitter and over Pinterest and over stuff like that. My aggregate viewership to our website, and we tell our advertisers all the time when they bring me on sales calls, it's like, we may have talked to somebody a year ago, and now we talk to them, and they're like, why are your numbers as far as your viewership, why have they kind of dipped? And we're like, well, it's only because so many people are looking at us on Facebook and over Google Plus and Pinterest and Twitter and all these social platforms. So at the micro level, our domestic site has lost eyeballs, but in the aggregate, the number of people that are actually viewing our stuff overall has increased by a factor of 4. And it's because we can kind of, we can be a little bit more liberal with embracing new platforms like that, because TV really helps us out.
So I know we've wandered a little bit, but I wanted to get this quote from George Cozy in, that if the police don't want to be filmed, the best thing they can do is to sing a copyrighted song and wear a Nike T-shirt, and you're guaranteed to not get it broadcast on YouTube. So, and you know what? It occurs.
So we're back to the Coke argument.
Right. It even occurs to me that if the police stations were really clever about this, they would put branding on their uniforms, and that could generate some revenue for the police force as well.
Let me address a really good comment here, and I think I disagree with it. Cliff Froth, he's saying the advantage of the newspaper, crosswords, and comics. Yeah, a lot of people will watch it for that or read it for that. But even if you're doing that, your average reader is going to at least glance at every page in the paper just to see if there's something interesting. And then it's up to the ad to catch the eye or the picture to catch the eye. That's why a lot of newspapers dumb down their masthead. because they want the pictures to sell the paper, because nobody cares if it's the Washington Post or the Warren County Report or the Guam, Review or whatever. The pictures, that's why they highlight those. But he says, do you think anyone actually watches the commercials on TV? Not willingly, we surf, or better yet, skip altogether. I think that news shows are largely protected from that because people typically watch the news live. They won't some people will DVR it, but a drama show like CSI, they might DVR and watch later. But most people, I would guess most of the viewers of Jason's newscast are watching it live because by nature, news should be new, and you want the latest news and the weather, and you tune in at 6 p.m., right? So you're semi-immune to that.
Is the main draw of Hangouts on Air, because for a topical and timely show like yours and the one that we're doing right now, you want to actually find out what the experts and what the analysts are saying as they're saying it, because we're actually talking about current events relative to our community, and so that's the natural draw, and that's the advantage of your show and the other shows in its ilk.
He said ilk. All right, so what's next, Alan?
I don't know. Jason seems to have a topic that he keeps wanting to bring up about Hangout apps. So what do you got?
You're putting this on
Jason?
me now. Okay, well, I guess let me segue. There's a certain very distinguished member of our community, and as we talked about when Chee Chew was in the Hangout, there's been a lot of momentum and a lot of traction in the Hangout app development space over the past few weeks, particularly. And now that the Hangout API version 1.1 is out, there's been some absolutely wonderful work by some really, really nice European gentlemen. Gerwin is doing a lot of stuff. He's got that 3D graphics enabled Hangout Disco, which is excellent. And then Moritz Toldhoff has developed the lower third generator, which some of us were using when Chee was still in here. And of course, Mohammed Mansour was doing some really cool stuff with accessibility. He wrote a really cool extension to do that in a Hangout. But there hasn't been a whole lot of groundbreaking Hangout app work from the good old US of A. So, Alan Furstenberg, you were representing Team USA and everything, and you've actually got some work to share with us and everything. So please, sir.
Well, I mean, Hangout app is pretty fun development. I've got to admit, it's been a trip learning all of this stuff, and there I go. No? Am I still here? It knows. It just knows. It's pretty fun doing this kind of development work. Partly because some of it can be pretty instantaneous, even though it's really tough to test, and part of it is because it's so very visual, and that's it's fun, it's enjoyable, and part of it is because it's just groundbreaking. There's so few other people doing it right now. I think Gerwin and Moritz and I were talking the other week, and we're like, do we know anybody else who's doing app development? And we're like, well, we know Jason's trying, and he keeps tossing out these ideas, and we know this person's trying. But we really haven't seen too many more apps coming out. And that confuses us a lot, to be perfectly honest. I think the biggest app that I've created to date was one that I launched when Hangouts launched. Back in April was when I first launched it, was the caption app. And that lets you put thought balloons and speech balloons and arrows. We've played around with that a lot on various Dan Hangouts. And the one that I launched earlier this week to make use of some of the new features was a small clock that would show up in the upper left-hand corner. And that, for me, was mostly just a test to try out some of the new features. But I've gotten some good traction.
What feature specifically?
In the latest version, one of the things that Caption could do, for example, is it was attached to the face tracking. So anything that you would display there would move around with your entire head, which is fine for that sort of thing, but it doesn't work well for lower thirds. So one of the features that they introduced was the ability to create what were called static images, or static overlays. And these static overlays could enable the use of lower thirds. But one of the things I was interested in is, okay, I knew Moritz was going to beat me to getting lower thirds work. So I wanted to see what else we could do with the static overlays. And since I've always been interested in time and building clocks on computers and having analog clocks display in a very digital medium, I went to see if I could get a clock working and showing up in a Hangout. And we were able to very, very easily. I think the biggest feature, although testing a static overlay, was also testing how you can make a static overlay move. And one of the features in making it move is how you can rotate something. And that's not a feature that the lower thirds would be very useful for, but it works out very nicely for a clock.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Alan, because I actually really liked your caption idea, and the fact that it would actually move, without getting too geeky here, it would actually move about the 2D Cartesian coordinate space and everything. But now that we've actually got facial tracking in a very rich way with 1.1 of the API and everything, are you actually going to build out a little bit more functionality within captions to actually move a caption within three-dimensional space and pivot and change perspective and scale?
It actually, the old face tracking feature, the old overlays had 3D tracking. If you moved your head back, the thought balloon would move backwards with you as well. So you did have 3D following then.
Because I know you've been quite active in talking about a possible bug as far as the API with the scaling method.
I'm trying to remember exactly which bug that was now.
Or an argument to the method about scaling.
Yeah, it's not so much a bug. It's basically the way the Hangout API exposes your video to us doesn't give us dimensions. So it just says, we've got a screen that is, some width and some height, and we're not going to tell you what the width and height are. So if you want to position something in the upper left-hand corner, you need to use relative coordinates, which it makes sense in their context because they don't want to tell you what the video resolution is. But it makes it really difficult for programmers. So amongst the programmers, I published a couple of suggestions about how we could get around that easily. That pretty much have been adopted by all 6 of us. So
I really like playing around with the API just because the event system is, like you said, I mean, it's a lot of fun, and if you're a web developer, you've got a lot of functionality at your disposal that all you have to do is just hook in some JavaScript to, and write a really quick callback and everything, and you can actually track when a particular participant talks, and you can do stuff with what interests me most is using physical gestures as program control.
Yes, and I think we're going to be seeing more of that in the next couple of weeks as people start to begin to figure it out. One of the things I did want to say is that it sounds like Google is sponsoring a contest amongst 5 different companies. And it's got all 5 of them working for the next couple of weeks on Hangout apps and integrating it with their various platforms and their various interests. So we're going to see how that develops. We got an interesting question in the comments, and my app, the thing that's been putting up the comments on the screen recently has been an app that I wrote today over the past couple of days. So it has quite a few bugs in it still.
And how exactly are you doing that? Because I wasn't sure if you were just bringing up some presentation slides, you were screen sharing, or
these are not presentation slides. This is an app that is running within the Hangout. Okay. Basically, this might actually work better. Let me see if I can do a screen share of my own screen.
By the way, hello to everybody who just joined in. Sorry to be less than cordial, but
why don't we do a quick? Let's welcome these folks here. We have some folks from Tech and Coffee, so we can all see.
Sorry, we invaded.
No, you're welcome. It's great. It's a wonderful podcast. I know Bruce Turner's a big participant in Tech and Coffee. So I guess start on the far right there. I only say that for direction purposes. Let's see. We've got. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, and tell us for folks who are interested in Tech and Coffee what it is, and let folks know what's going on.
Tech and Coffee, and Tech and Coffee.
Indeed, this is a mass invasion. This is awesome. Occupy Google Plus Week. This is great. Welcome. So start on the far right and tell us, introduce yourselves, what town you're in, and what website, or your URL or whatever. Go ahead.
George.
The gentleman in the house.
Oh, you said far right, so I'm in somewhere. Okay, me. I'm George Dosher. I guess I'm the originator of Tech and Coffee. I don't know. But I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm originally from upstate New York, and techandcoffee.info is where you can find what we do.
Okay, and then next. See, I don't know your names. I apologize because you signed in as the brand
I'll
page.
type mine in.
Go ahead. Just introduce yourself. The gentleman in the white shirt. It's not Yanni, but there's a similarity, I must say. That's a compliment. Unmute your mic. I think your mic's muted.
All right, yes, I was muted. I'm Matt Janey. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I run around with these tech and coffee guys in the Hangouts, and interested in current tech stuff. That's typically the stuff we talk about in there. George is kind of the chief of the gang over there, so he can kind of tell you what's going on, as he kind of started it all, and we sort of migrated into that community.
How you doing your picture-in-picture, dude?
That's a XSplit.
Okay, very nice. That's a nice mic you have too. That's a wonderful mic.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Duke Carico.
Yeah, with the Tech and Coffee bunch, and I've been in here a time or two before. I'm from Northeast Tennessee. Yeah, the accent gives it away, right?
I could listen to you all day long. Now that's a mainlander accent, right, Jason?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. Well, welcome, Duke, and the rest of the gang there. This is great. Please, the two gentlemen on the right, if you could just each send me a private post so I know to include you in the final post there that we're going to do. So I can include your names and plus mention you for folks who want to follow you when we post the show. So, okay, awesome. This is great. So I guess while we're waiting for Alan to come back, Duke and the rest of the gang, what's the what are your thoughts on this Google Plus week? What kind of interesting things have happened that you've seen that you'd like to talk about?
Gosh, you're gonna hate me. How about a Facebook announcement? That's really about all I've had time to follow this week. So,
did you buy any stock?
You know what? I've asked a lot of people around Google this week if they would buy Facebook, and almost I don't want to say that it was unanimous, but almost unanimous. Nobody was willing to really invest.
Yeah.
What do you guys think on the end there? Did you buy any stock? Do you think it's a good investment? Is it going to pick up steam, or because it peaked and dipped, and now I'm hearing like I don't know. Is this the next MySpace or is it the next Google? What do you think? Facebook?
It's got a long way to go to Google.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a day trader as well. I work for a large bank. I'm trying not to show my shirt because I realized I'm wearing a shirt that has my bank's logo on it. But I really hesitated at buying it because I don't know. I don't think I think it's going to be another Yahoo. I just don't see it staying at what it's. I think eventually it's. I don't know. I'm not a. It's not like it's Google Plus against Facebook. It's just I don't really see the stocks going too much further than what they're at.
You know,
I mean, I could be
have you ever
wrong.
seen a service that is so universally despised by its user base, but there's no alternative, so they continue to use it, right?
Yeah, it's very commercialized. The thing I've noticed.
It's called Google.
Yeah, well.
Do you guys think there's an initial glitch? I'm sorry. Somebody said that it went down a little bit, and then the underwriters had to support the price a little bit. Do you think that was a real glitch in NASDAQ, or did it really tank? Just an opinion question.
Well, like I say, just judging by the people that I talk to here, and maybe Google's biased, but just judging by the people I talk to, I think a lot of people were scared of it. Okay,
Yeah.
And I mean, you look at Groupon, Zynga, some of these other tech companies that have gone. I'm not sure. I don't know what Facebook has to offer. Okay, Google's got a world of services. Facebook is a place you go socially. Yeah, I've got a Facebook. I don't necessarily click on the advertisements. I've noticed the advertisers are pretty good at targeting towards me, though. You know.
I think as discussion makes its way around, people are starting to second guess it. Not terrible long ago, I would have still defended that Facebook was going to have its place for a long time. It has such a powerful brand and has so many people finally converted with a lot invested in it that it was going to be hard to see it slip. But anymore, I think people are getting more and more skeptical. And then the latest announcement about paying for status updates, I think people are already annoyed about status updates not showing up and not seeing status updates of their friends. And then to see that they have a preferential, pay to play, if you will, on the status updates, I think is adding to a lot of final hesitation, with their confidence in the whole Facebook model going forward. I think they're kind of moving towards more of a slash and burn to pump it up, and eventually somebody's going to left holding it all, and it's not going to be worth what people thought it was going to be worth.
Well, but the big problem is the Facebook model is essentially the same as the Google model, at least superficially.
I don't think so at all. I mean, the Facebook, social interaction model is somewhat similar, but Google's going a big step farther and bringing all of their services together with the Google Plus.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean that in that aspect. I mean the revenue model.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I think just Google has their roots down a lot deeper with a lot of diversity in their products that their brand is going to stay deep rooted, while I think Facebook could easily be pulled right out of the soil.
Yeah.
So do you believe that the valuation of Facebook just based on the 900 million users, is that really correct? I mean, is that a way? I mean, it's the first time anybody has really come across IPO for a company with this many users. So is that a tech bubble right there?
Could be.
What do you mean it's the first? Sreek, that's a nonsensical comment.
No, it's not.
How many users did Google have when it IPO'd?
But was it valued based on the number of users it has or the existing revenue it was generating?
That's always a good question. But I think a lot of people I think its valuation was largely based on the fact that it was a household name.
It was valued basically on two things, in my opinion. I could be wrong. One was, if you look at the growth in revenue, they had a pretty good, the initial billions, it actually shows a pretty good graph. But the question is, after the IPO, can they sustain that? They have a huge user base. How many are active? As I think Duke said, there was a survey recently, and 50%, 60% of people doesn't even care about ads on Facebook. I've never, ever clicked, even accidentally, on a Facebook ad.
Mm-hmm.
But Google has proven that by using the search, mail, YouTube, everything, their ad business is very, very strong. So when Google was valued, it is an information engine. Facebook is not. So I think there is a big valuation bubble in Silicon Valley right now. And Zuckerberg himself did that by buying Instagram for $1 billion or so.
I think Facebook's newness in marketing and a big part of its value is just a cultural movement into social networking for advice and for information about product purchases and brand loyalties in a way that people are just discovering. And I think that it's not a phenomenon that is unique to Facebook.
But again, GM discovered that they have a huge brand loyalty on Facebook, but it's not necessarily converting into sales.
I think that's I think GM's discovery of this, you'll notice they also have discovered that their huge Super Bowl spending doesn't seem to translate into customer loyalty either.
Alan, let me bring up something on this point here.
Dan, let me finish.
Go
this
ahead.
point.
Go ahead.
The only reason why people believe that television advertising brings people in is because there have been decades of research into this. There have not been decades of research into how online or social marketing works. So we're right at the beginning of this. So I think GM just said, well, we have no idea what we're doing, so we're going to stop spending money on it. Which, I think if they stop spending money on making cars too, they can also save some money there, but I'm not sure it's going to be good for them.
This is the thing. This is a service. There's no thing that they're producing at Foxconn and selling, right? So you have to question the sustainability. They're only going to be where they are until the next Mark Zuckerberg or Tom Anderson figures out how to do it better.
Or Sergey Brin.
Or Sergey Brin. Today, I watched at about 9:25, 9:30 Eastern time as Mark Zuckerberg rang the opening bell to open NASDAQ. And in the next hour or two became the 29th richest person in the world on paper. But George Cozy was watching and had a really interesting point. The market cap is what, 104 billion for Facebook or something like that?
Close.
It's about 100 billion. The market cap for McDonald's is 89 billion. There is absolutely no way in the world that you can convince me that Facebook is worth more than McDonald's Incorporated. I mean, that is insane.
It's more, I actually saw a Google Plus, someone posted in my stream the same argument against Facebook and Ford, and they were talking about what all Ford did, what all they produced, what all they were worth. But yet Ford was worth, that Facebook supposedly was trading higher than Ford was. So I found that interesting, and I thought it was a very good point.
Dan, I think the valuation you're talking about is more anticipatory than anything else.
No, if you value the percentage that they sold, it's a scientific formula. It's the percentage of shares that they had outstanding and the percentage that they offered in the IPO, and you do the math, and it's they only sold $16 billion worth of shares publicly. I'm getting an echo back from someone, I'm not sure who, because I'm not getting a green bar, but they sold 16 billion, and then today they got sued for 16 billion. But I don't think that lawsuit has legs because I think it's.
But Dan, here's the thing: you say the value. Yes, the valuation is a simple multiplication of how many shares versus what the price is. The issue, though, is how does that valuation basically when you compare that to their revenue, as Sweet says, you start that multiplier that's in there is basically anticipating future revenue. The problem, Sreek, is that it is basically saying that in order to meet that valuation, you're going to have to dedicate the next 10 years of revenue and pump it directly into what the company's valued at. And so the question is Facebook going to be able to make the same or better profits for that amount of time? Is it even going to be sustainable for 10 years?
But can you imagine, seriously, I mean, comparing McDonald's and Facebook, the notion that Facebook is going to generate more profit and have more sustainability than McDonald's? I don't see that.
Can you picture the sign on the login page of Facebook? Billions and billions served?
That was the worst thing McDonald's ever did, was getting rid of that. I think they were at about 60 or 70 billion when they stopped. Zach, welcome. Zach Perry, tell us where you're from.
Hey guys, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and I've commented on a lot of your guys' posts on Google Plus through the last couple months, and finally had an opportunity to jump on, so I thought I would for a little bit.
Awesome, welcome. Glad to have you aboard. Are you a fellow tech geek, or what's your story?
Just a random tech geek. I work for a defense company. I'm actually in the finance side. I don't really do any computer science in my job. Just interested in the field and the.
You're probably the right person to tell us about the valuation then if you're a finance guy.
Yeah, well, that's why I was interested to kind of jump on. Is I was really interested in it. I watched the stock all day today, and watching it kind of creep up. Originally the opening price was going to be more like in the mid-20s, and as it kind of got closer and closer into the day, it finally jumped up finally to 38. And then it was really interesting watching it jump up to 42. And then even though it had 400 million shares exchanged today,
yes,
price ended up, it ended up just over 38. So like you guys have been saying, there's a lot of questions on what their actual revenue model is. And I really enjoyed the discussion of the comparison to Google because, Google has a real actual revenue model and stream, and Facebook is just, hey, we're this application, we do all this cool stuff, and we still have to figure out how to make money. Where Google figured out how to make money pretty early on, and Facebook is still really struggling with that.
So the question to you is, how do you think they arrived at a $38 figure?
I don't know. I didn't read enough into any of the discussions. I think a lot of it was just trying to pump it up so it was as much money as they could get.
Well, but here's the thing: the $38 figure, as the first day of trading is shown, is actually was perfect. It was right on. Because here's the thing: Facebook, once the IPO goes through, they really don't care what the stock price is. Facebook corporate doesn't care because they're not making any money on a trade.
I disagree. I disagree with the $38 thing, Alan. If you bought Facebook stock today, let's say you bought it at 38, are you willing to sell it below 38? No. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, what I'm saying is, why Facebook themselves don't care.
That I agree. I'm talking about the first statement.
I mean, let's look at Google. Let's use Google as a comparison. On the first day of trading,
no comparison.
Let's use Google as a comparison.
Okay.
On the run up to Google's IPO, they dropped their estimate. They dropped their strike price. They dropped it pretty significantly. Okay? So the IPO, and it went up, what did it go up? 90%? It went up a huge amount on the first day of trading. That means that Google had a metric buttload of money that they could have made. That's money that essentially Google lost by not having a higher strike price. And Google couldn't get that back. Now, their investors could. Probably Sergey could. Their individuals could. But the company itself lost money because they went with a lower strike price. But by the fact that Facebook struck at 38 and closed at 38, that means that Facebook picked the right price. They couldn't have gotten a penny more out of it if they had tried. Well, okay, they could have gotten 27 cents more out of it.
I believe it's the other way. I believe it closed at 38.27 because the strike price was 38.
Well, we know that it closed at that because the strike price was 38 because it was being propped up.
Well, the underwriters, they want the price to go up as much as possible on the first day because it looks good.
Exactly.
It is totally unexciting to have an IPO at 38 and the day ends at 38. You want it to start at 38 and go to 50. I wrote one of the analyst reports there on Wall Street Journal this morning. I can't remember. It was like around noon or 1 o'clock, and they were talking about when the price was floating around 41. And one of the analysts was saying that it was a huge failure.
It is.
That some of the analysts' initial strike price was they thought it was going to get up to around 50 today.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's a PR issue. It does not bode well for the stock in the future. It doesn't bode well for the company in the future. But Facebook, the company, they nailed it. It means they could not have gotten a penny more out of it, and in fact, they probably got more out of it than it was worth.
I again disagree, but it'll be a very interesting 10 Qs to watch for the next few quarters.
I don't think this bodes well for them long term, but I don't think they care about long term.
Yeah, well, whatever that money they got for that strike price, for the IPO, it's not like Facebook was counting on a certain amount of cash to add to their books. It was more to get the founders to cash out. So really, the only guys that really care about that first price is the founders that if they want to cash out right away.
And if that's the case, why wouldn't they actually issue more stock? Why just 16 billion? Alan?
Well, I don't think they wanted to issue more stock because they wanted their current holders to sell their stock. I mean, what did I hear today? Something like 40% of the stock that traded was traded by individuals. It wasn't Facebook stock. It wasn't corporate issuing. It was people who had, who had gotten it, were selling their interest in it. So that's not exactly a good sign either.
No long-term holders, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure they've got plenty to sell. So I'm not really worried about them, but
in my perspective, if you said that Google went up like 90%, I'm not comparing. I mean, again, we don't want to compare Google's versus Facebook, but any tech stock in recent time, I don't know how Groupon was, but I think it was a disaster from at least from the underwriter's perspective or from Facebook's perspective, that it ended up very close or almost exactly as the strike price. That's my thought. I mean, I expected it to be around 40 to 45, considering how pessimistic I am about them. So,
Yeah, in the world of where PR doesn't matter and you're just talking about pure economics and exchanging cash, yeah, if you can get the thing sold at your initial IPO, then you're happy. But that's not the world. That's not the finance world we live in, unfortunately.
Alan, Alan, you want to ask that question? Dan just left a question for Zach.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of curious to know what in the world is Dan? What? Why don't you ask it? Because I haven't read it yet.
Okay, I'll read it. Let's get Zach's take on whether it makes sense that virtual Facebook has a bigger market cap than a massive brick and mortar McDonald's.
Oh.
I don't know. I mean, what is...
Tough question.
What does market cap really mean? I mean, it's a fake number.
Exactly.
So...
Here's the thing, Zach. Look at McDonald's history, right?
It's all about what you want to pay for a stock.
Yeah, but it's the value of a company on paper, and so if you think about it, McDonald's has a 50-year history or whatever it is. I'll be corrected in a second, I'm sure. McDonald's has this history. They have a footprint everywhere in the world. They're massive. Anybody who wants to open a restaurant, look at what McDonald's is doing, and you're going to see how to do it right. And they're selling products. There's a line wrapped around the building to get in. They're showing no signs. I mean, they're growing and growing and growing, and they're doing it right. And they have a huge track record. They are the diamond of fast food industry, and their market cap is 89 million, and Facebook is over 100 billion. I'm sorry, their market cap is 89 billion. I don't know if it said million or billion, but it's 89 billion, and Facebook's bigger. It just makes me really cautious about because Facebook is hot, and the latest survey was 58% of the users of Facebook don't trust them. There's a $16 billion lawsuit filed today. Again, I don't think that has legs because there's no damages. They might get fined or what have you for alleged privacy violations, but I don't see where tracking your cookies after you've logged out, which was allegedly not what they said in the terms of service at that time. You still have to really, to get a significant judgment. I'm not a lawyer, but I think you have to prove damages. So I don't know if that suit has legs, but that lawsuit is equal to about what they sold today in stock. I think the notion that McDonald's, which is everywhere and a big track record and selling a product, is worth less on paper than the total valuation of Facebook is completely insane. And coming from a financial background, Zach, am I right to be cautious about that?
I totally agree. And you know what else? Who else agrees with you? I went to, since I'm from Omaha, I have some Berkshire stock, and I went to the Berkshire shareholder meeting a couple weeks ago and listened to Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger talk, and Facebook came up, and both those guys said they wouldn't even get near it. Because both of those guys really believe in understanding stocks that you invest in. Neither one of those guys really understand, the tech companies like that very much. But, Charlie was talking a lot about, the valuation of a company is based on future revenue. And if you're just not sure what Facebook's future revenue is, then you can't even begin to price it.
That's what I call a bubble.
Right. So, or it's just all speculation or, future valuations. And when you're talking about future valuations, you're talking about an opinion. There's no math. There's no, based on the last 10 years, here's what the revenue growth is, and it's going like this. And I can say, well, based on their products, the product differentiation, I think that they'll continue to grow at this rate. Facebook, you're like, well, I don't know, if people don't like Facebook anymore in a couple of years and they have zero revenue, and then you have nothing.
Let me ask you a quick Warren Buffett question, then we'll go back to Sariq. Zach, Warren obviously has a clue, right? He's a very smart guy. I think his what's his?
He's okay.
I think his portfolio is about 73 billion, something like that. Berkshire Hathaway, somewhere around that. Right?
Warren's personal net worth is it's up around 50 billion, I think, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the stock portion of Berkshire Hathaway is, but it's billions and billions and billions of dollars.
It's big time, and their stock, I forget what their stock price. It's like $10,000 a shares. I mean, it's not.
Well, the A shares are 120,000, and the B shares are, I think they're trading around 80.
So it's not an entry level, stock to buy.
Well, the B shares are. I mean, you can get in for $80 a share.
Okay. Well, here's my question for you. He just bought some newspapers, and I'm a newspaper publisher, so I follow this closely. He bought Media General's newspapers. I think it was like 67 newspapers or something. He bought them for $142 million, which is pennies to Berkshire Hathaway. I mean,
that's nothing. He talks about some of his billion-dollar options that he has, and he says that has no impact on future earnings. So something that's $150 million is.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think about this purchase, because if you just look at the real estate value. I mean, I'm in the business. I know like a Gauss Urbanite printing press, which is the standard of the industry, used is anywhere from $2 to $5 million, and new would be like $10-20 million. With all these newspapers now, some are dailies that have a press, and some are newspapers that are just weeklies, and they're sort of satellite operations of the daily. Like in Lynchburg, where I have a paper. All my competition is Media General, and will soon be owned by Warren Buffett, ironically and interestingly operated out of the Omaha paper. Those folks are actually going to be running these 67 newspapers. So he's going to go in there, he's going to probably clean reduce and put business people in there, reduce the top heaviness.
Whenever Warren buys a company, he doesn't touch anything.
Really?
He has never bought a company and changed a piece of management before. He will only buy a company that he can buy and then not touch ever again.
Short term or long term, because that's the difference. A smart person goes in there and watches for a couple years and then might clean house if necessary.
That's the way that he buys companies, and this is different than stocks. This is the way he's buying a whole company for Berkshire. Is he will watch the company for a couple years, and then if he likes it and he knows that he doesn't have to do anything, then he will buy it.
I think he said that the thing he looks for isn't so much competent management or a track record, it's the ability to raise prices. It's the ability to increase revenue when he looks at buying a company. What are your thoughts on that? And can you explain that better? Maybe be more articulate than I am on that, because I'm.
Well, I was going to comment on the newspapers first. Well, Warren, he's been a paper guy for a long time. He had a really good relationship with the lady that owned the Post. What was her name? I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Catherine Graham.
Yeah.
Yes, Catherine Graham. Yeah, that's her. He had a long-standing relationship with her, and he's actually owned the Buffalo News for decades.
1977 or something.
Yeah, and then he recently bought the Omaha World Herald a couple months ago, and then this was his latest purchase. He actually talked a lot at the shareholder meeting about why he likes newspapers and why newspapers are going down and which ones he really likes. And he said the key for newspapers going forward is not having stock prices in there, not having sports, national sports scores. It's concentrating on the local scene. And I'm a subscriber to the Omaha paper. We get the weekend edition of it, and the Omaha paper is very strong in having local stories.
All right, let me get some advice from you, because just from my selfish perspective, and then I'll shut up. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing here. I have 3 newspapers. My theory, here's what I do. We do hyper local. We have no AP content, no Reuters content, nothing like that. We try to offer folks content they can't get anywhere else. We do in-depth stuff, like sometimes they're like 60 minutes type pieces, in-depth investigations. I don't race to the internet in terms of all my papers are free, right? So what I do is, instead of breaking my content out into a separate online product that competes with my printed product, I take the entire issue, because it's a free paper. So if you if you read the paper online, I'm saving 15 cents, right? Because I'm not having to print your copy. So if you buy an ad, for Zach's car care service or whatever, and you're on page 7, then online you're also on page 7. and so they look at the entire paper. It's atrocious for SEO, but I don't care because there's no money. If you're the New York Times, you can make money online. If you're Drudge Report and you're one guy or maybe two guys or whatever he is, and you have a billion hits, you can make money. But by and large, if you're in Omaha or if you're in a little town somewhere, then it's very difficult to generate enough views to make the revenue relevant. And you can't pay for the guy who has to sit in the courthouse for 3 hours. So for small local news organizations, it's very difficult to make any money online because the CPMs are so low. So that's my theory. What do you think? Do you think that makes sense? And any advice you might have, I would love. That was a complicated question. I apologize. And the second part of the question is, do you think that Warren Buffett's affection for newspapers is a romantic affection, or do you think it's business acumen?
I think he would tell you that it's business acumen. After reading his biography, and I've been to a couple of the shareholder meetings now, is he really likes it. It's a passion for him. He started making money delivering newspapers when he was a kid, and that was one of the first jobs he had was doing that. And he also, he sees the value in it though too. He is smart enough to see that there's a gap. That yes, you can get national news online, but no, you cannot get local specialized news online, and that's newspapers are still the best, avenue to do that. As far as what the best model is, I've never really dove into the costs of running newspapers, too much before. The thing that makes the Omaha newspaper successful, I think, is a lot of it just has to do with the community. And then Omaha is an old, I would say probably an older group, but we're not quite as overall tech savvy as everybody else. We're a little more traditional. So, we're still happy and we don't mind having a newspaper, and we still like sitting around and reading the newspaper. But, I think in a lot of communities, a lot of areas, your population just has moved on past that. And then, I don't know how you do it at that point. But I have always been interested in Dan, I've watched a couple of these before and listened to your model of having the free paper with the ads. And I think that, like I said, it just totally depends on your user base. And if they like that, and that's great. But then also, if you could get them to pay for it, but if you're to the point where they're either saying, well, I'm not going to pay for it, and if I can't find it online, then I'll just do without it. There's nothing you can do at that point.
Well, but you boost your circulation.
You
boost your circulation by giving it away. That's my theory. When we sold it, it was like 1,000 or something, and now it's 9,000 because we give it away, and it's everywhere. We're in grocery stores. It's everywhere. So
are you able to increase your ad rate at a linear level from that? Like, do you get more money from the advertisers saying that you're at 9,000 circulation instead of 1,000?
Not really. It doesn't matter. We dominate the local market. So we're in a county of about 35,000, and we have a circulation of 9,000. And you get about 2.2. The auditors say that we're not audited because it's free, but the ABC audit says that you get about 2.2 people per paper. So our circulation is, our readership is about 20,000 on any given issue, and that doesn't include online. So I would rather have 20,000 people read it than 2,000 and charge 50 cents. Even if you charge a penny, it's a hassle. So we give it away, and we stack them up, and we don't distribute them to doorsteps or mailboxes or whatever. We actually have them stacked up in stores, so everyone has to make a voluntary decision to pick one up. Now, sure, someone may grab 10 for kindling or whatever, but that's our theory. And
Dan,
yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, but and I understand how it's different, but it sure sounds like your newspaper runs on what we would call an internet model. You're giving it away for free. People have to come to you to get the product, and you're completely run by your ad. You're completely dependent on your ad revenue.
But it's different, Alan, because that's correct. That is a great analogy.
Yeah, I was gonna agree with Alan there. That's totally what it sounds like.
It is, except I make a whole lot more in print than I would online. I'm not sure why exactly, but here's the deal: I have a CPM of about $1,000, which is higher than any website. In other words, every paper I print gets about anywhere from 50 cents to $1 in advertising revenue, and it costs me about 12 cents to print it. Now there are many other expenses, all the reporters, right? So we print the Warren County Report, and it's 9,000 copies, and the revenue from a single issue will be anywhere from $5 to $10 grand. So that's unheard of on the internet, and the difference is not because it's a better medium on the outside, but because most people will look at every single page in the paper. I'm selling an album. I'm not selling a single. And when you go to your go ahead.
So you think the big difference is in how people read your media versus how people read a website?
That's the difference. When you go to, look, for any of us, anybody in the room here, when you go to when you look at news or any kind of content, you typically go to some kind of aggregation site. It could be Google+, it could be Facebook, it could be Drudge Report or Huffington Post or Yahoo News or whatever, Mashable. And so you go to those sites, and then they'll direct traffic from that site to the individual source. And most of the sources end up, if you go all the way back, it's a newspaper. But when someone picks up my newspaper, they typically will look at every single page. Alan is totally frozen. Or you're back. Okay. But
no, I'm going to die soon.
Yeah, when you pick up the newspaper, you typically will glance briefly at every page. So I'm offering you an album, whereas the aggregators are offering you singles. And if you don't break your content out because everyone else is doing it, it works. And so I'm able to get a CPM of like $1,000, which is unheard of on the internet. Nobody's close to that. Leo, who's the king, is getting $45. I'm getting $1,000. I mean, it's a dramatic difference. That's why print, they can say it's dead or whatever. It's not dead. If you offer a local product with content they can't get anywhere else, and the content's really good, and you offer it for free, and you put it everywhere, it's going to be picked up. I mean, who wouldn't? There's a billion great sources of information about what Barack Obama said, or the situation in Greece, or the Facebook IPO, or any of these national or world stories. There's very little about the neighborhood in which you live. And CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and the Washington Post cannot touch me on what the Front Royal Town Council did, or the Middletown Town Council, or the Warren County Board of Supervisors, or why 150 motorcyclists, members of some, club, were doing in town, or what that siren was that you heard, or the fires on they can't touch us on those things. So we bring stories about their local neighborhood, and we do it in a package as an album where people will look through 40 pages and see 200 ads. So that's our model. And I don't want to. Any thoughts on this, or?
Well, I think the follow question that I always have is, okay, so how do we take those lessons and apply them to an online version? And I'm not expecting an answer from you. I'm just kind of putting it out there to ponder.
That's the problem, right? That's the problem we have. That's why so many, how many sites have you seen start up? We're going to do a local news site. It's going to be local content, blah, blah, and then they fold in 6 months or a year.
Yeah, we got an interesting question from Pam in the YouTube comments. She asked, is it because advertisers won't pay the same rate for internet as they do for print?
Is it as effective? Man, Sarik, are you opening potato chips or something? The question is,
supposed to share.
Okay, everyone think about the last time you opened a newspaper. Okay, 1987 or yesterday or this morning.
Actually, Dan,
how many ads did you notice? Alan, I'll shut up and let you talk, but the best comment ever on this topic is, in a newspaper, Rupert Murdoch said this, and he's right. local ads are content just like stories. If you open up your local community free tabloid and it's got the Little League picture and all this stuff, right? The local ads in there about the local computer store, the local pizzeria, the special this week, the Italian restaurant, whatever it is, those ads are content just like the stories. On the web, you tend to gloss over those things, but you tend to notice them in a magazine or a print publication. I'm not sure why, but for whatever reason, and if we could figure this out, you're right. That's the problem. We haven't figured this out yet. But the bottom line is, any of you guys, if the last time you picked up a magazine or a newspaper or the Sunday inserts or whatever, people like the ads. They like local ads. That's why the Sunday paper or the Saturday paper, depending on your market, that has all the inserts in there from Kohl's and JCPenney and Belk or whatever, that paper will sell 25 to 40% more copies than the regular daily paper, because people want those ads. They want ads that are not obtrusive. They're not in your face. They're not flashing at you. They're not filling your mailbox, but they're voluntary and they're well done. I'm not sure. This is a science, and I don't think we've figured out how to duplicate that on the internet, and that's the problem. Because I want the local newspaper, I want those media organizations to figure out a way to do it online, because we want the investigations. We want the city council to be kept honest, and we have not figured out a model that generates enough money online. If you're in a small community, Alan, whatever town you're in, how do you pay for a guy to sit in the courthouse for 3 hours and another guy on the street corner to take the picture of the suspect walking out, with his lawyer or whatever? How do you pay for that? How do you pay for the investigative journalism? You can't online. Go ahead, Alan.
Let me ask you a slightly different question. Well, no, it's not slightly different. It's a completely different question. Earlier, we were talking about advertising on TV versus advertising on some social network somewhere, for example. And we were saying, and one of the things I said is that we had decades of understanding of how people react to TV advertising, but we don't have that for social media yet. How do you, and more importantly, how do the people who buy ads from you know that their ads are working?
They know because they get a response. If you go to, like, our flagship paper is Warren County Report. It's just warrencountyreport.com, and it's free. You can read every issue's online for free. If you look at the current paper and you go back a year, you'll see most of the advertisers are the same advertisers, except for, like, a festival's happening or whatever. They're not in every issue.
Sure, but how do they? If they stop buying an ad, would they really notice a drop in their customer?
I don't know, but I know that if you paid me $50 or $400 an issue, you would track that. You would put an offer in there or whatever, and you would know. In our case, it's everyone reads the paper. I mean, the whole county reads it, because we have. I mean, if you look at the issue, like, the stuff we cover, it's local, and it's a lot of investigative stuff. So it's really popular. And so if you look at it, I mean, if your husband or wife's bringing it home every week and you're all reading it, talking about it, people are looking at it. And so they're not doing it because they like me. They're doing it because it works for them. I mean, I don't know the exact metric, but you'll find that there's a huge continuity of advertisers. Most of our advertisers have been with us for years.
Hey, Dan, here's a question. So a lot of the advertisers that you have on your paper, do they have any online presence?
Good question. Yes, I'm guessing a lot of the technically savvy ones, but really, like in my case, you can buy a 4-inch square ad in full color for $50. So it's a no-brainer, right? And you can reach 20,000 people in your neighborhood. So we offer rates that are actually probably better than Google or anybody. So we're competitive.
Well, I'm not talking about advertising so much online, but I'm talking about having a web page.
I think a lot of them do. Either they're, they've updated.
How many
Google
URLs
Maps
do you have? How many URLs do you have posted in your advertising?
I would say a third of them have a URL, probably. I'm guessing. It's a wild guess. I'm not sure. We have like 150, 200 ads in issue, so it's hard to. I mean, I don't. And they change. They'll switch up their ads. I'm not sure. But this is the big problem. How do you have, if you're in a small town, you're only going to get, on a hot story, you're going to get a couple thousand hits. If you're in a town of 5,000 people, right, you're going to get a few thousand hits max of people who are local and relevant. How do you figure out a model that makes sense, that local businesses, can spend money in advertising and get a return on that website? It's very difficult, and that's a problem. It's like the newspaper thing works, the TV thing works, but if Zach, if you wanted to start a website about your, you get all excited, I'm going to start a website about my local community in Omaha, you know what the CPM rates are. There's no way you're going to make any money to pay for actual full-time reporters and writers. It just doesn't work. There's no business model that works. That's the problem. And as soon as we figure out how to do that, because in the end, the newspaper is I'm a media organization. I print papers, but in the end, I'm delivering content to people who are consuming the content. And I don't care if it's on print. I'm not like in love with, I spend, $100,000 a year on paper and ink, but I'm not I'm not wedded to that. In the end, I'm trying to create content that's compelling and interesting and delivered to the consumer and generate enough revenue to pay to create the content. And right now, and you can do that in New York City, and nationally and a world site, but there is no business model that works to do that in a small town. And that's the big problem. And these little papers are having are dying out. And so the politicians are going to get away with murder. Because we know the Boss Hogg thing, the dramatization and Dukes of Hazzard. I'm dating myself here. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about, Zach, or maybe you do.
I know. Dukes of Hazzard. Come on now.
You're like,
Dukes of Hazzard.
But I'm just saying that what do you do? How do you? You have to generate a model that will pay you to do those 60 minutes type pieces. It could be on the web or whatever, but there is no model right now that I've seen that works in a small town. That's the problem. And that's why Warren Buffett has not given up on newspapers.
Well, if you're doing a small town newspaper and you're having a small town website and you're dealing primarily with smaller companies that really probably don't even understand the whole click per, dollar per click thing, why is there not an opportunity to just have them pay the same amount of money that they would pay for a paper copy?
Because they're not going to get the same response. Because we're getting back to if you're a Republican, you're on Drudge Report. If you're a liberal, you're on Huffington Post. If you're in the middle, you're on Yahoo News or whatever your aggregator of choice is. And you see the interesting headline and you click to that source, you read that one story, you close that tab and you go back. And the ads on the website are not as effective as in print. I'm not sure why. But when I go to a website, I just gloss over the ads. When's the last? Can you name a single ad that you've said? Okay, Zach, what site do you like to look when you're interested, when you want a news fix? But you go to CNBC or whatever. Name one ad that stands out to you?
Dan, here's the problem. Before he answers, here's the problem. I don't think I can name an ad that stands out on the web. I don't think I can name an ad that stands out on TV. I don't think I can name an ad that stands out on radio. I don't think I can name an ad that stands out in a newspaper or magazine. Now, occasionally I do, but it's incredibly occasionally.
I agree on. I don't know if it's just. Let's see. So, I'm 33, and I got in. My dad and I kind of got in on the web really early. We were in on Prodigy back in the day, so I've been online for a really long time. And I don't know if it's because of that or what, but I gloss over every ad, no matter what medium it is in. They don't even register. No matter, whether it's a newspaper, like when I read through the World Herald, I know exactly, because I've read the paper enough, I know exactly where they place the ads on the page, I guess, and my eye doesn't even go to that section of the paper.
Okay, how many people live in your county?
Well, let's see. Omaha is basically 2 counties, and I think the main metropolitan area is. I think it's last time I looked. I think it's about 800,000.
Okay, let's look at your neighborhood. How would you define if you talk? I mean, let's say you're
let me stop you. Personally, my interest in local news is limited. The thing that I most care about for local news wise is what's stuff that's going on. Like what bands are in town. What bars are having interesting events. Where could I maybe go take some pictures at? That's the thing that I'm most interested in. So in terms of
that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about, Zach. I'm talking about the convenience store or the restaurant that's right in the shopping center near you that you go to. The local pizza place you like, the Chinese buffet, the bar that you might go to, or the coffee shop. They're going to have a poetry reading or a band or whatever. If that kind of stuff's in the paper and it's really local, I mean, I'm talking within a mile of where you live, that would be interesting to you. And if you had a little local paper with a circulation of 5,000 or something right around where you live, and all the ads in there were the car dealership right next to you, the pizza place right next to you, the Italian restaurant right next to you, et cetera, the movie theater right next to you, then all of a sudden those ads are relevant to you. And they're as interesting to you as stories would be. Because it's not a million people in a county, it's the neighborhood in which you live, and that's what we can deliver. But that same audience would not generate the same revenue or be as effective online. That's the problem.
Well, so what's the difference between a news item, like a reporting of an event that's going to happen, and an ad at that point?
I mean, one is content that gets you to pick up the paper, but a lot of people pick up the paper for the ads. I mean, do you ever get the Sunday paper with all the inserts in it?
Yeah, I look at the Best Buy ad to see what movies are on sale, and that's it.
Okay, but you buy it, right? You spend $1 or whatever it is.
A lot of people watch the Super Bowl just to watch the ads.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And anybody who's ever watched British television knows that's the same thing. Ads are content. Local ads are content, just like the stories, if they're relevant to you. Something in a county of 1 million, and they're talking about some place you've never been or whatever, it's not as relevant to you. But if there was a little tiny paper that focused hyper local to you, to where it's the little league team that you went to school at, or whatever, it's the local restaurant you frequent, it's the bar you frequent, what's going in the little mom and pop shops that can't afford to buy the big paper, but they can afford to spend $30 or $20 or $10. Some guys will buy an ad in every issue, and it's a 2-inch ad. It's $10, black and white. And they can reach 20,000 people for $10. And 20,000 people within, a 5-mile radius of their store. So it's a dramatically cheap way to reach people. That's what we do. So, I mean, there's just no model on the internet that can do that and can pay for me to have a report on the courthouse and a photographer outside. It's very expensive. So that's the problem, that people want everything. And I give it away free, but I just cannot find a way to duplicate what we can do in print, delivering an album of content to people with 40 pages or 48 pages, where they'll typically look at the whole paper. I cannot find a way to duplicate that online that will generate enough revenue for me to pay for my 30 reporters, who are covering everything. That's the dilemma. And that's why Warren Buffett was right in buying these papers for a song, really. He paid $2.25 million a paper. I mean, the real estate and the printing presses alone, he really got a good deal.
Yeah, Warren doesn't make a deal, and afterwards people go, "Boy, he paid too much." No, Warren knows what he's doing.
Well, guys, why don't you weigh in here? Wesley, welcome back. And I'm getting an echo from someone. I'm not sure who. But Wesley and the rest of you guys, weigh in on whatever you want to weigh in on. Let's have a little round robin here.
I haven't followed up on the topics today to see what's happening, so I don't have anything currently, actually.
Well, let's go back to Duke and Tech and Coffee. You guys want to just talk about whatever you want to talk about? And then we'll get ready to look at some comments once Alex gets back.
I was just going to say, while you were talking about local advertising being content, I just got to thinking, I don't know if anybody's watched anything on Ustream here lately, but Ustream started to put ads right in the middle of a content. You can be watching something live, and they no longer start with an ad. I mean, literally, I don't know what kind of timeline they insert them, but they interrupt the broadcast to give you some sort of an advertising. And listen, I've quit. If something's on Ustream, I won't even watch it because of that. So, I mean, I think that's one instance to where it's in your face so much, it kind of ruins the experience for me. And I've been avoiding Ustream.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like a lot of the ads. I mean, it's you can't skip through half of them. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of ads, especially if I'm trying to catch a quick story on CNN and there's like a 30-second ad for it, and I know the story's only 90 seconds. Okay,
yeah,
whatever. I'll move on. I got other stuff to
why?
do.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Let me touch base with a couple of comments that we've been getting from YouTube and from Google+. Some of which is down there. I'm having some video trouble now. George Cozy has been regaling us with just how liberated he is from any sort of media whatsoever. And he made the interesting comment that Google knows him. None of these other media outlets know him. I'm not entirely... I think he's painting that as a good thing, but I'll let you be the judge.
I don't know.
Dan, are you back? Because I feel like
I am back.
About to die.
Yeah, I'm back. I apologize. I think, man, we're getting a massive echo. I'm not sure where, though. Do me a favor. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay, here's the deal. On the previous comment, and then if you could repeat George's comment, but on the previous comment about Ustream, the problem is, again, it's a revenue model, right? And there's expenses involved in streaming that stuff. So I kind of have sympathy for Ustream. Imagine if Hangouts on Air, which we're doing right now, which has no advertising, if this was the Hangout company and that's all they did. There's no way they could give this away. This is heavily subsidized by YouTube or by Google, right? So they're able to take a loss. Right now, Hangouts are probably, this giant money-sucking hole, but they have a future, and they're thinking like how to monetize it in the future, etc. And also, we're uploading. This will be uploaded to YouTube, and they'll be able to monetize it there. So it's being subsidized by Google. But if you're Ustream, then you're Hangouts Incorporated, and that's your only product. So it's very difficult to pay for all that streaming bandwidth if you don't have, a lot of ads. So I can totally sympathize with that situation. I mean, imagine if you were CEO of Ustream, you've got to generate a profit or minimum break even, right? How do you do that? They're not charging for the service to watch it, so they've got to run the ads. And so I can understand that. I kind of think it's a bum rap, with all due respect, to say, I understand what you're saying. They're trying to figure out, just as I am, how to do something online. And Craig Shipp just joined us, and he's actually got a very successful local presence online that generates revenue and is profitable. So good for him. He's one of the few. And he's got like a local Drudge Report where it's like one or two guys and they're generating a good revenue. But those are rare. And but so anyway, can you repeat George's comment, Alan, please?
You actually expect me to remember George's comment? He says so much. His comment that I quoted was him saying that Google's the only one that knows him, whereas TV and newspapers don't know him, and this is why he likes and trusts the ads from Google more than he trusts them from television or wherever.
That's true. I hear what he's saying there, but the whole thing I'm saying is the local problem. On a big scale, like all of the Netherlands, true, but the problem is for a really small community, a town of 5,000 people or 1,000 people, how do you have any kind of local media organization and you actually pay someone to sit in the council meeting and cover that meeting, and it's going to cost you, $30 to $100 or whatever it is to pay for that coverage, there's no way with an audience of 1,000 max you're going to generate enough revenue on a website to pay for that reporter. So if it all goes online, those little towns are not going to get covered. They're not going to get the watchdog that the newspaper provides, because again, it's about the album. Because when you put a newspaper out with 8 pages or 40 pages or 100 pages, you're delivering an album, and most people who consume the content that way will look at every page. But that is not the case with the website in general. So go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry. Is your video okay, or what's the? Okay.
Nope, I'm getting serious problems here.
Okay,
I'm
so you're about to roll out.
die.
All right. Any final comments from everybody, and then we'll go ahead and close it because I've already gotten the warning about a half hour ago. Let's start at the far right. Zach, any final thoughts on this wonderful Google Plus week? Tell us how your week went.
No, it was good. The highlight of my week was was watching the Facebook IPO and seeing all that overvaluation, all the overhype kind of fizzle, and everybody was happy with 38. So
we'll see if it's the theory of gravity. What goes up must come down.
Yeah, I'm currently at a do not buy yet. This is my official rating right now.
Yeah, I think the most prescient thing came from George Cozy when he pointed out that the market cap for Facebook is greater than McDonald's, and that gives me extreme pause. Wesley, did you have a great Google Plus week? What was the most interesting thing that you saw or were involved in, or post or whatever this week?
I think the most interesting thing was also same as Zach, the Facebook IPO stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the dollar amounts. I think they're going to go down, but we'll see.
And then the Tech and Coffee gentleman, I'm embarrassed. I cannot remember your name. I apologize. But normally
George,
I'm ADD. So
George Dotcher.
George, awesome.
I posted it in the side there, yes. I think the only comment I have is I'm heavily mourning over the funeral of Hangouts with extras right now. They died the other day, so.
I'm surprised about that because that was a testing ground. Initially, when it came out, we thought, when it said, my initial reaction, when it said you can try these for a limited time, my thought was they're going to start charging for these features. But then we found out later that that wasn't the case, that it was just a testing ground. That's why they said it's for a limited time. Then they would either kill them off or graduate them to regular Hangouts or Hangouts on air.
Well, we lost fixed URLs, which was heavy use on our page, the Tech and Coffee page, to get to our Hangout, because we had a couple Hangouts. Now we just basically post where we are. We're kind of, we don't keep it public, actually. So
earlier tonight, we talked to Chee Chew for about an hour, and he answered every question, and one of them, every possible question you can imagine. If you're watching
this
now,
I can imagine quite a few more.
Oh, yeah. But he did address that. And I think Oleg, who is actually ill tonight and couldn't join us, unfortunately, because he's always a wonderful panel co-host, he has a redirect thing. So look, Oleg Moskalinsky, look for his, I forget what you call it, Alan. Save me here.
The bookmarklet?
Yeah, his bookmarklet, which can hopefully solve that problem for you. But yeah, that's an issue. And Chee said he understands the issue and they're working on it. There's just some technical stuff. Sreek, what was the most interesting thing that you saw on the web this week, or on Google Plus, or what have you?
Well, I didn't get too much time to be on Google Plus again. It was another horrible week for me. But I thought the chat we had with Chee was pretty good. And, I think we learned a lot about... I was very interested, especially to know that they are actually curating the Hangouts we see in the Hangouts link. The talk with Hermine was really great. And... and finally, I am glad that a lot of people actually think that the valuation of Facebook is not really correct. And just to mention, you were talking about the market cap of McDonald's. Their last year revenue was $27 billion. A lot of economists don't really care about market cap, which is mostly a market sentiment, as opposed to the actual revenue. So that's where it's going to be key.
Awesome, and we appreciate Sreek, you joining us. Even if you chopped off half your face with your lower thirds, because you love that high camera, impressing us with his cool hairstyle. All right, I'm just picking on Sreek, but he gives it out as good as he gets it. Duke, thank you so much for joining us again from Tennessee.
Yes, yeah. I guess Facebook. I've had a very busy week and really missed a lot of my tech news. But I guess if you asked me to pick one, maybe not a Google topic, but one, there was a lot of people on Google talking about Facebook, and I'm kind of like Shriek. I'm kind of. I guess if I'm gonna pick a side, I'm glad it ended where it started today. I think that might be about right.
Awesome. But I swear to God, I think the Big Mac is worth more than your game notifications. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I really think there's something to be said about brick and mortar, but I'm an old-fashioned guy in a dying industry, right? Craig Shipp, a guy who really is contradicting everything I've said because he has a local website that's been around for, 10 years, right? And it's successful and popular in Frederick, Maryland. It's frederick.com.
Yeah, but you have to have a monopoly in order to do that. And that's a long story, how you develop that. But on the fixed URLs, we need those also for our profiles. So,
no, we don't. Bad idea. Fixed URLs, horrible, evil.
I want one.
I'll debate it with you for 2 hours straight if you want another night.
I want to just have plus.google.com/Craig Shipp. Done.
What if somebody else gets Craig Shipp before you do?
Well, that's my Gmail address is Craig Shipp, so I just wanted to match that. That's all.
What if somebody else gets it before you do?
I've already got Craig Shipp.
No, you've got Craig Shipp at Gmail. You don't have Craig Shipp at Plus. Look, trust me, I can argue about this for an hour.
Anyway, I want that, and then I also want to thank you, Dan, for sharing the write-up on photographing cops, because I ran into that situation right here with the G8 summit going on. I was up and I was trying to shoot a video of this like heavily armed paramilitary type. And he said, no, you can't do this. And so it was the next day that you posted that article saying that the DOJ wrote to Baltimore and so on and said that, hey, you guys can be photographed.
Yeah, it's America. There's no asterisk on the First Amendment, correct?
Yeah, he's basically saying, hey, if you're out, even if you're doing your job, you can be photographed. And so I went back the next day, and they didn't hassle me at all. So they must have gotten the memo too, because I went to the same exact checkpoint and sat there and videotaped away and took some still photos and so on. And they didn't even say a word. Same people. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, what anyone watching this who is going to be in a situation like Craig is, I'm going to Alan next, so hang on, Alan. And tell your internet to hang on, I guess is the bigger issue. But Craig, the thing is, anybody who is in any kind of situation where you are, the key is you have to be in a place legally. You can't be like across the police tape or something like that. But as long as you are with the bystanders or what have you, and you are there legally, you have a right to videotape them on duty, despite what all these insane laws are. And what you should do is just Google that. Just Google DOJ letter to Baltimore police, videotaping, that kind of thing. Get that letter, print it out, have it in your hand, and it might save you from getting some nonsense arrest.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention this one quickly. The ACLU has a publication called Know Your Rights Photographers, which is basically the photographers' rights to the First Amendment. So if you want a concise summary, the ACLU publishes that guide as well.
Awesome. And while we're on Alan, let's go ahead. I'm sorry.
But let me just say the beauty of what Dan shared is this came from the DOJ. So yes. Now all of a sudden you've got the head honchos saying to all the other little guys, hey, you can't do this. And that is powerful. And I do have it with me now. So,
yeah, the Attorney General carries some weight when you're in an altercation with some, rookie cop, right? Who doesn't understand the Constitution that he swore to uphold.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Eric Holder has some merit. Alan Furstenberg, how was your awesome Google Plus? What a week it was, huh?
It was, it really was. For me, it was a truly awesome week. It was, it was a very Hangout-filled week for me. I was very focused on the changes for Hangout apps. I've got a lot of stuff done and some more stuff in the pipeline. So it's been a very active development week, and I love working on this stuff. So that's been great. I did, however, want to say, since everyone else is talking about Facebook, the coolest thing about the IPO that I heard almost nobody mention, and I was very disappointed that I didn't know this ahead of time, is that Facebook hacked the opening bell. They made a change to the opening bell so that when Zuck pushed the button to trigger the bell, and mind you, I think the bell itself is really stupid looking, but when they rigged it up so that when he pushed the button, it was automatically posted on his timeline that he pushed the button. So the moment that he pushed the button, it showed up on his timeline that that they were now listed on the NASDAQ, and I thought that was pretty cool. So Dan, let me ask you, how was your Google Plus week?
My Google Plus week was great. I got to co-host an operation in a Google Hangout for my dear friend Hermine, who was on here earlier. I got to talk to Chee tonight again, and we always love having him on the show. And I got to read lots of great content, and I got to make some new friends. We had some new people circle me, and I circled back, and we've had conversations. It's just awesome. I've seen some of these guys here, some repeated and some new. But for me, what Google Plus means is it's a way for me to meet new, interesting people who share my interests. And that's what it's all about. You know, we need Twitter for news. We need Facebook so your mom can tell you what time to show up for Thanksgiving. And because she can't figure out Google Plus, God bless her, but or isn't interested. And we need Google Plus to expand our knowledge and meet new people. So I want to thank the Tech and Coffee guys for joining us. I'll keep this up for whoever wants to join in. I'm gonna have to restart it because we're at 2.7 or 3.75 hours or something. I keep getting these warning bells, so I'm gonna restart an after party hangout in a moment. But I love you guys, my friends, old and new. This is always awesome, and it's just terrific. So what a week it's been. And so let me close the official broadcast portion here by saying you guys hang out in the Hangout. I want to thank everyone for watching, and we do this every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight GMT. Right now it's midnight, but depending on what we do with our time zones, our crazy, as Jason Salas says, our mainlander time zones. But anyway, I want to thank you all very much for watching. We really appreciate it. We love all you guys, and please keep the comments and questions and circling and all that stuff going on. And have a wonderful, wonderful Google Plus week.